Y'all, please excuse the beginning clips. This video does go together cohesively, even though I made it at different times. The first few clips I made yesterday when I got home and I was really tired. So please excuse the grammatical errors. Like I heard myself say in one of the clips, the people who was in NASA instead of who were in NASA. And then also too, I said, what was it? I said something else. I said FBA, and then I immediately corrected myself and said FBI. But those first few clips, I was tired. There wasn't a whole lot of errors, but there were some errors. Like there were grammatical errors, and I sounded tired. So it still goes together cohesively, and you can understand what I'm saying. But I just wanted to put that disclaimer there. All right, peace out. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa, and my poetry name is New Lily. If you're new to the channel, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links. Links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program, information about the tactics used on targets, information about the technology used on targets, and just info about the program in general, y'all. Like I said, I've been targeted for 5 years, since 2020, so I have a lot of experience with targeting, y'all. The first few links are different video options where I tell my story. There are about 4 to 5 different videos where I told my story, y'all. So you can take your pick from one of those videos. One of them I'm on camera for 11 hours. It's a 7-part video compilation I made in 2023 where I told my whole life story. So the things that preceded my targeting, and then the things that caused the targeting, and what has happened since me becoming a target. But there's also other videos, important videos, y'all, with pertinent info for targets. Info about, like I said, the program. It's called COINTELPRO. That's the technical term. Info about the technology used on targets, info about the agenda behind the targeting and the program in general, etc., etc. Actually, y'all, check out my last video because I went into detail about the agenda behind the targeting. And anyways, y'all, try not to talk too much about that because I do want to get out of the program. And when you start digging into, some of the deeper stuff, you kind of tend to saddle yourself deeper into the targeting, and it is possible to get out. I've seen people that have done it, so I'm trying to do it myself. I've been doing a lot of research, y'all. Although I've been targeted since 2020, I didn't learn I was a target until the end of 2022. And that was when I tried to relocate off of the island where my targeting started, the island that I was born and raised on, and tried to relocate. The targeting followed me. You know how it moves, y'all. It attaches itself to you. Followed me. I didn't know I was a target still. I just knew something weird was happening because I sent a text in 2020. So after 2 years of working and attempting to live down here on the island I was born and raised on, I tried to relocate. I had lived in the States for a number of years in the past, so I figured I could just move to the States and start over. The thing followed me. I had some reactions to it following me because, again, I didn't understand what was happening or why the situation was so grand, like why it was following me, why it was that serious. Had some stupid reactions, y'all. I never physically hurt anyone, but I said offensive things, and the targeting went viral. So listen to my story, y'all. I'm not about to rehash that stuff redundantly in this video, but that's what led to my targeting going viral, and that's what led to where I'm at now. Things just keep happening and piling on. Like, that's just how it works when you're a target. It's like a catch-22. You just keep getting in more and more shit once you're targeted. Like, the tactics they use causes anger and wrath, and then you get angry and you say certain things, or you make a video to defend yourself, whatever it is. And then more people tack on and are angry, and the more people are angry, and more people. It happens to all targets. I've been doing my research on this thing, y'all. I've been researching it for a long time. That's how the thing's designed. Once you get thrown in, you are in big trouble. You better figure out how to somehow curb your natural human instinct to react, and you better figure out how to survive this thing. It's very satanic. And it's like designed in this way where you're going to keep getting dug deeper and deeper and deeper into the thing if you don't figure out how it works. Okay, hold on, y'all. Let me blow my nose. I'll be right back. Okay? I'll be back. So I'm back, y'all. let me hurry up and finish off this video, though. I don't want it to be too long. I've been out all day, y'all. I had a lot of things to do today. You know, I went to the gym. I got paid today. And I had bills to pay. I had to do laundry. I went to the gym, all kinds of stuff, y'all. So up and down. It was all over the place. I had to go do a lot of business. So I'm tired, y'all. I'm real tired. And then I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't eat anything today. And I was lifting heavy weight in the gym today. So you can imagine the exhaustion. And I have work tonight. Anyways, y'all, I just want to talk about reactive abuse. Kind of revisit a situation I talked about already. There's actually a video I made, I want to say like maybe a month ago. It's kind of hard to keep track of things, y'all, when you're targeted. You know how it is. Every day it's some crazy shit. And you're trying to defend yourself. But it was like about a month ago I made this video about the situation that happened in the gym with one of the guys that gang stalked me in the gym. Y'all know what's been happening in that gym since the end of last year, right? All the way up until now, about a year later, basically. Almost a year that things have turned pretty gnarly in the gym that I attend. And it's all because of this dude that I used to go to the gym with. He's a personal trainer in the gym. Y'all know the saga. I've been talking about it in all of these recent videos. That's mainly what I talk about now because that's mainly what happens, or that's the main focus in my life right now is the gym, y'all. As crazy as that sounds, you know how it is when you're targeted. Not much is happening, but everything is happening at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, everything's blocked up. You know how it is. You're impeded, typically. You're only able to work minimum wage jobs, typically. And most of the time, if you're smart, you'll find a hobby or something to do. I notice a lot of targets get into something, typically fitness, the ones that are smart. And so that typically will become your world for the moment until you can find your way out of it and figure out how to, whatever. You know, I told y'all I'm going back to school. I'm in the process of working that out. But that's it. You know, for the most part, all I do is go to the gym during the daytime. When I need to shop, I go shopping. And at night, I do security. So that's why most of my videos are about the gym and gang stalking in the gym, because that's where I spend majority of my time if I'm not in the house or at my night shift job, where obviously not much is happening. Of course, you have the Rev campaign in the road, but they can't physically be next to me like how it is in the gym. Thank the Most High. Anyway, so that's why a lot of these videos are like that, because I saw a troll, a plant, it was an obvious gang stalker, commenting on one of my videos. The page had no activity. You know, I just completely blocked the person, talking about how all my videos are about the gym and this and that, you know, just antagonizing and saying a bunch of stupid, incorrect stuff. You know, anybody that's followed and been subscribed to me knows that I share pertinent info about the targeting. Info that I wish I knew when I first got targeted. All you have to do is check out the links, like I said at the beginning of my video, in the description box and comment section, and you'll learn a plethora of info about the technology used to surveil you, about the neuromonitoring technology that's implanted in your body, about the agenda behind the program. A lot of stuff, y'all. I shared a lot of info. I even shared this video called Irrefutable Proof that Gang Stalking is Real. And it's from this other target named Targeted Tony, where he took the time to put together this slideshow of what's the word? Sorry about that, y'all. Like, I literally had to freeze the video or stop the video just so I could recall the word that I was trying to say. I'm that tired, y'all. I meant to say high profile, right? So the video is from Targeted Tony, and he put together like a slideshow of high profile targets. You know, people like Ted Gunderson, who was in the FBI. You have people that was in NASA. You have a scientist who they stole her work, and she became targeted, a NASA scientist. People in the NSA. You have people like, not Robert Duncan. Robert Duncan is the scientist who I shared a link to his video in the description box and comment section that talks about the agenda behind the targeting. Anyway, I'm not going to go into too much details about that, y'all, but he's a DARPA Harvard scientist. Anyways, y'all, so in the video you have not Robert Duncan. I meant to say, they sent me something just now, y'all, with the technology to get in my head, and it's really working. I'm already tired, right? But they sent an ad. This video app that I'm using to record myself has ads sometimes. And part of the technology they use on targets is shadow networking. I've told you all about this already. That's also info shared in the description box and comment section. And what they do is they hack all of your technological devices, and they can send you things to sensitize you. Like they can send you an ad with sensitization in it. They can send you a video and you're recommended on YouTube with sensitization. This is some high science technology. They can change videos in real time to make it look like people are wearing sensitizing colors or patterns. It's just crazy stuff. I've shown examples. Check out the links, y'all. You know, speaking of those links. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent. I didn't mean to say Robert Duncan, though. I was trying to say, I'm always mentioning this guy, Eric Snowden, who was also another high-profile target that worked for the Patriot Act. He's not in that video, the irrefutable proof video that I'm mentioning or referencing, but there are targets like him, high-profile targets that's in that video. So check out the links in the description box and comment section, y'all. You'll find a plethora of info and also videos that can validate your experience. Anyways, y'all, let me get to the point of this video, though. So it's just been the same crazy stuff, y'all, with the gym, you know, ever since what happened with that trainer that I've talked about in these recent videos. And those of you that have been keeping up with my videos, you're familiar with the situation. That's why, you know, I'm constantly now talking about gang stalking in the gym, because it's led to all these crazy gang stalking scenarios in my gym. But at the end of last year, I've talked about this before because they keep painting false narratives with that situation too. I don't want to talk about it again. I don't want them to start using him as a gang stalker in the gym again. I really don't. But what happened was this personal trainer that, like a main face in the gym, one of the main faces in that gym specifically, he trains in that gym. He trains people. And what I'm starting to learn and realize, y'all, especially after what happened today, I'm starting to realize that all these guys float around in the different gyms on this island. Like, they might be in one gym today and the next gym tomorrow, you know, because they're personal trainers. And this is a small island. So I think they get hired on by different clients, and they're in different gyms at different times. Actually, the guy that I had an interaction with today owns a gym. I didn't know that. So you're going to hear about what happened today and how they tried to run with that, with the craziness. But anyway, so nonetheless, y'all, it's just, that's what it is for the most part with these guys, is what I'm starting to realize. So it's like you might see that face in one gym and then that same face in another gym, because they're all over the place. They're training different people, and these people go to different gyms. So, nonetheless, though, he's a main face in my gym. He definitely trains a lot of people in my gym, and he seems to have some sort of very close personal relationship with the owner of my gym. So anyways, y'all, sorry, I heard someone pulling up outside, y'all. So anyways, this trainer, I don't want to tell the story again with him. You know, I've told the story at this point now in like 5 different videos. The reason I'm doing it is because, like I was saying in the last clip, there was a gang stalker that commented on, I think it was my last video, the one before that, you know, talking about the fact that most of my videos is talking about the gym, and that's the only gang stalking I'm talking about. That's recently. Anybody that's kept up with my videos, you OG subscribers, or if you're new to the channel and you took the time to actually watch my videos and not just the recent ones, like I advise, you'll see that I had videos talking about other things, experiences I had in 2023 before I even started working out, where I was dealing with energy weapons, direct energy weapons. You know, I believe I was dealing with radiation in 2023. I had gotten skinny. I had lost a lot of weight. That's what led to me getting back into the gym. And the reason I say getting back into, y'all, is because I've worked out off and on for years. I've always been into athletics and fitness. I'm that kind of girl. I played sports in high school and in elementary, etc., etc. But you know how it is when you're getting older and stuff. Sometimes you're not consistent with your workout, right? Or your schedule, your regimen, whatever. You might fall off. It's just how it is. Unless you're like a diehard workout fanatic, like, you know, a trainer or something. And although I am somewhat of a fanatic when it comes to fitness, I've had other things going on in my life throughout the years, career, etc., when I wasn't targeted. And there have been times and periods where I have fallen off. But now that I'm targeted and I don't have much going on, like, all I have is time on my hands in a way, if that makes sense. And so I've focused all of my energy into working out, because that's something that's keeping me, right? It's keeping me strong and healthy, especially with the tactics used on targets, because it's meant to wear you down. It will wear your body down. The high cortisol levels from the stress of what targets deal with on a daily basis can get you sick physically if you're not working out and taking care of yourself. So that's why I do what I do. It's because I'm passionate about it. I'm truly passionate about working out, But then also too, I'm also trying to extend my life and protect myself because of what's going on. So anyways, that's why all of these videos recently, like I would say the last year really, has been mainly about the gym. Y'all know I was doing a correction officer job during the daytime a few months ago. I made videos about that as well, right, when I was doing it. But I lost that job. Some stuff happened. I've documented what happened with that too. I'm trying not to talk too much about it because it's still kind of like up in the air, the situation, even though it's so long after. That's kind of what happened before I got the job anyway. It was like this whole year waiting process before I actually even got in there. So I'm still not sure about that job and what's going to happen with it, and if, I'll be getting it back or whatever. So I try not to talk about it too much because that's kind of what led to me. Yes and no, if that makes sense. It's kind of like I was making the videos to defend myself with some of the things that was happening. But nonetheless, I'm hearing a cricket. I shouldn't have made videos. So that's what led to me. Ultimately, that's what led to me losing that job. Whatever. So I try not to talk about it too much, even now. But I was making videos about that at one point in time too, and targeting in that area of my life. So it's not just been gym videos, but that's what's going on in my life right now at the moment. And so that's what I talk about mostly. Anyway, so those of y'all that have been keeping up with all of my videos, when all of the craziness in the gym really started for me. And that was at the end of last year. Like I was saying before I went off on the tangent, I'm just going to briefly talk about the situation. I don't want to talk about it again, and I don't want them to start sticking him, as a gang stalker in there again. But basically this main trainer guy that trains in my gym, he started working out at the gym. I started working out at the gym at the beginning of last year, right? Like the beginning of 2024. He was one of the first faces I saw in there. As a matter of fact, I remember the first area I hit was the back room in my gym, and he was back there working out, right? Y'all, hold on a second. I know I did this already, but let me blow my nose and get something to drink. I've been out all day. I just got home, but it's just the stupidness that happened because of something that happened earlier. It all pertains to this gym kakalala, right? That's been going on because it's been like layers to this thing and more people getting involved. So let me just get something to drink again. And then I'm going to come back and, as a matter of fact, I might even go make some food because I haven't eaten all day, y'all. And I have work tonight. And then I'll come back and try to finish this video. I'll be back. Anyways, y'all, I'm back. So like I was saying before I left, the reason I say the main trainer, it's not like he's the main, godlike trainer in the gym. They're all, there's a bunch of personal trainers in there. But I'm saying the main because he's the guy that I had an interaction with that created all the contention I'm dealing with now in the gym. Okay, so anyways, at the beginning of 2024, like I said, I started working out in the gym. And I've told this story, like I said, in prior videos, y'all. So if you've heard the story, you can fast forward through this part of the video. I'm just briefly summarizing what happened with the main trainer that led to something happening with the other trainer that they're now trying to utilize. They've been trying to utilize against me and create stuff with, etc., etc. Okay, so anyways, so at the end of 2023, y'all, I started working out. Like I told you on the earlier clips, I strongly suspect that I dealt with direct energy weapons in 2023. I felt the symptoms of what felt like a radiation energy weapon attack. I had lost weight, etc., etc. So they stopped utilizing it on me, thank the Most High. And at the end of 2023, to get my health back, I started working out in the house. So for about 3 months, I was working out at home. After I got strong, and I started seeing the muscle coming in and I saw my weight coming back on, I decided I wanted to incorporate weights into my routine. So I started looking for a cheap gym that I could go to. When I say cheap, I'm talking about as far as price goes. It's a good gym. It has good equipment. I'm just saying when I say cheap, I was looking for something I could afford. That's what I mean. I have to specify, y'all. Everything I say is a problem. I'm already hearing Rev in the background. It's like they're crazy or something. I literally mean the price. That's what I'm talking about. A gym is a gym. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter where it's at. As long as it has the equipment you need to use, then it's a gym. It's a good gym. It does not matter. I've seen some of the greats like Arnold Schwarzenegger, even Ronnie Coleman working out in some real bust down gyms. And once it has the equipment, then it's a gym, right? And this is an actual nice gym. It has AC, everything. It's in a good location. When I say cheap, I'm talking about the price. Something in my price range because I am a target. So anyways, and I think the difference in price really is just amenities, because some of these other gyms will have like, you know, a sauna, or will also have like a clinic attached to it where you can get like therapy, like rehabilitation, etc., etc. And all of that comes along with, I think, the package. So it's really just like an amenity thing, not the state of the gym. So anyways, I was looking for a gym I could afford, and I found one, like I said, the one that I found, and it's in a good location. And so I went there and I signed up, got in the gym. I was very nervous because, you know, at this time I had just come back on island and the targeting had shifted and changed, and, you know, there were way more people involved. It went viral, like I told you all, when I tried to relocate to the States, and I shared offensive content in my vehicle. I shared some offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda out of anger, and just had some bad reactions, y'all. Nothing physical, but I said offensive stuff, and it led to the targeting going viral and worsening. So when I got back to the island I tried to relocate off of, things were different. I used to be a teacher. I could no longer even get a teaching job. Things were different. I couldn't even get a job in the casino. You know, I tried to apply to one of the casinos down here, you know, to be, I forgot what it was, what the position was, something I'm actually overqualified for, and I couldn't even get the job. Anyway, so I've applied to a lot of jobs, y'all. There are a lot of jobs I have not heard from. So it's a lot different to how my life used to be. Anyway, so nonetheless, things had changed when I came back down here. And so more people were involved and more people were angry and whatever. So I wasn't sure what kind of treatment I was going to get when I went into this gym. I didn't know what to expect. But I had just kind of this mindset that whatever happens, I'm going to just ignore it. I want to work out. I want to get my life, my fitness, and my health back on track. And I need to start incorporating weights. So I went in there, and like I said in prior videos, it actually wasn't that bad. You know, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought the treatment I'm getting now is kind of in my head what I had fantasized would be happening, or what I had imagined would be happening. You know, I thought it was going to be some sort of horrible gangstalking treatment in there, and I thought it would be similar to kind of what's happening now, since things have happened, whatever took place last year. But it wasn't bad when I got in there. You know, there's a lot of guys in there that are personal trainers and or just advanced workout people. You know, like sometimes when you get super advanced and you start learning a lot of stuff, you can kind of emulate a trainer too. You might not necessarily be a trainer, but you can give tips and stuff because you know a lot of stuff. You've been working out for a long time. So it's those type of people in there like that, you know, and they weren't really being nasty to me or anything. Look, it's starting to rain now, y'all, as I'm about to get into the story. Anyway, so there's a lot of those guys in there. Y'all, let me start back when the rain stops. I believe this is HARP, another tactic they use on targets that I've shared info about in the description box and comment section. They use a lot of resources on targets, y'all. This could be authentic rain, but I don't know. Anyway, so I'll be back after, you know, things cool down. I might end up even going to sleep and finishing the video when I go to work, y'all. But I'll be back. Anyway, y'all, so let me finish the video. I reiterate, if you've heard this part of the video, this story already, not this part of the video, but this part of the video, yes. If you've heard this story before, because I have told it in prior videos, just feel free to fast forward until you get to the point where I'm talking about what took place yesterday. Because at this point now, y'all, I'm back. It's the next day. I didn't end up coming back until now. You know, I even went to work last night. I was going to make the video then. I was too tired. Because I'm repeating a lot of the same stuff I've said already, just kind of trying to lead into more gangstalking that has taken place that pertains to that situation, because a lot of things have happened or transpired because of that situation. So that's what's led to me telling the story over and over again, because they're constantly painting these false narratives with certain things pertaining to that situation, and it's frustrating. And so that's why I keep coming in these videos and redundantly repeating the story, and then following up with documentation of something new that happened pertaining to the situation. Anyway, y'all, so let me quickly finish wrapping up what I'm saying. So, yeah. So, beginning of 2024, working out, you know, I start going in there in the evening times, and there were a lot of guys in there. There were a few females, but it was mainly men that I was seeing at that time. Now, I will say now I am seeing more females in the gym now. But anyway, so at the time I went in, there was a lot of dudes, and a lot of them were either personal trainers or guys that just are into working out, and so they know stuff. And so I went to the back room. That was the first room I hit, because that's one of the rooms that has a lot of leg workout equipment. And I was just trying to feel my way around. I hadn't been in the gym in years. This is a new gym. So obviously, how you have to get acclimated with the equipment and with the space. And then I also, too, had to get acclimated with working out while cameras are on me. I'm targeted, trying to feel out the people in there. I didn't know what to expect. So anyway, went to the back room and I was using the leg adductor machine. And while I'm back there, this guy comes back there, and this is the main trainer guy that ended up becoming this main guy in my targeting. You could kind of say in my life, really, because he played a major role in the targeting and in the last year of my life. Because like I told you all, I'm very passionate about working out. That's the main thing I do right now. That's what I have going on at the moment. And so this situation has taken precedence in my life. It's played a large role in my life, right? And he's played a large role in my targeting now, at least in this last year. It's been 5 years of targeting, so he's really, if you look at it, only been a part of my targeting for about a year and change. But still, it's just been such a significant role that he's played recently that it really seems like this grand thing. Anyway, so he came back there and he starts using one of the squat machines. And so I'm just, feeling nervous in general because, again, I didn't know what to expect. And he had this loud music playing or whatever. I remember I was just doing my workout and he asked me if the music was bothering me. I said, no, it's okay, no problem. And that was it. I kept working out. And, eventually as I start using different machines, he started actually giving me tips. Like I remember I had got up from the adductor machine and then I went over to this other machine. I don't even use that machine anymore. But it's like some sort of kickback machine that's back there that I was trying to play with and figure out how to use. And he was showing me how to use it, and giving me advice on how to use it. I didn't know he was a personal trainer at the time. I was just like, okay, I'm just glad this person's being nice to me because this is not the treatment I expected when I got in the gym. So then I go out to the main gym and there were other guys around the area working out, and I started trying to use another machine. Another one came and was showing me how to use the machine, and that was pretty much the pattern of what was taking place in there. I was just feeling out how to use the machines, and you just had these different guys showing me how to use the machines. The only thing I would say was negative was that there were a few of them that were doing this tactic where, like they're making eye contact with me. Like, when a guy is trying to hit on you and like an over-exaggerated version of that. Like, if you're out in public and a guy is interested in you, he might look at you extra long or, look in your eyes, try to make eye contact with you. The look might linger. If you're a woman, what it's like, every woman, I think, for the most part, has experienced a guy that's interested in them. They were doing that, but like overtly, like it was some sort of tactic. There's talking going on outside my room, y'all, and it's distracting. Again, let me stop and come back. I'll be right back, though, y'all. I'm locked in. I'm ready to now do this video and get it over with. I'll be back. All right, y'all, back and locked in and ready to finish. So yeah, y'all, it was just like this slight patronization, if you will. Like a few of them were doing it, not all of them, but it's just kind of like this thing where they're purposely like looking in my eyes extra long and just trying to like overtly kind of seem like, I'm checking you out. And I think it had everything to do with, rather than the horrible reactions I had when I tried to relocate off island and the targeting going viral, I think it more so had to do with the videos I made when I got back on island. Because after I tried to relocate and everything blew up, and I came back to island and did research and learned that I was something called a targeted individual, that was when I was like, nah, man, I gotta tell my story and I have to defend myself. And so I made a video just telling my life story. So it was more than just talking about what started the targeting. I also talked about a few things that preceded the targeting. And even this situation that happened with this guy years ago, that kind of played a part in my targeting when the targeting started. Before I left island, I was living in the neighborhood with that guy's family. I almost said that guy, not that guy, with that guy's family. And his dad and his family kind of started playing a part in my targeting. And this was before I ever made videos. I even received, anyway, I don't want to go into details about it, y'all. There's reasons why I talked about it, though, because it gaslit me like crazy for talking about the situation when his family played a part in my targeting. And even during the targeting, I got a message from the guy on Facebook. So, and this was before my targeting went viral, though. This was before I tried to relocate off island. And this was before I knew I was a target. But that was a part of my targeting. And when I got back on island, things were happening still in that neighborhood because we were still living in that neighborhood. So when I got back on island from trying to relocate, Gangstalking was still happening in the neighborhood. And so I told my life story and I talked about what created the targeting. And I even talked about that situation that went awry with that guy from years ago in my early 20s that led to off and on cyberbullying and cyberstalking before my targeting. So I dealt with a target-like situation prior to the targeting, believe it or not. But it wasn't targeting. It was nowhere near as intense as being an actual target. But nonetheless, I did talk about that situation. And so that guy is, a pretty well-known dude down here. And so he's into working out and stuff. And so a lot of those guys in the gym, I believe, know him and are friends with him. I know at least one for sure, confirmed friend. I remembered the guy's face from back in the day. I just have good memory. So anyways, I think that was what was causing it with a few of them, why they were doing that, like what seemed like patronizing, overt show of interest. It was just kind of like this, I think, way to patronize me because they felt like I was this conceited bimbo that, felt like every guy wanted me. And I think it's that the story that I told was taken out of context when I was talking about the guy, because I mentioned that he had sent me a message on Facebook a year prior to me trying to relocate off island when I had just created my new Facebook. And that was because I was, again, just trying to prove that I was cyberstalked and cyberbullied, and that his family was involved in my gangstalking, because now here it is, 2021. I just created this Facebook. Somehow he knew I had Facebook and sent me a message, and all then my targeting was happening. It was not viral yet, but it was happening all then. And gangstalking stuff was happening in that neighborhood. It was actually more so contained to the neighborhood back then. It hadn't gone viral yet, so I don't know if he was privy to the targeting. I don't know why he wouldn't be if his family was, and if he was just being nosy and decided to shoot me a message to be nosy. I don't know, really, but I was just trying to prove that I was cyberstalked and cyberbullied by this person, and here I am now dealing with this new situation where I'm being targeted. And, his family's involved and, all these crazy things are happening. And so that was just why I mentioned it. And that was a part of my story. And I think it was taken out of context, because eventually I did make a receipt video. I got backlash for mentioning the guy, and it was turned into this false narrative that I was trying to break up his marriage and I was a jaded ex and I was a jaded this and that. I was never with that man. I never even kissed him. The most intimate interaction him and I ever had was a hug. One hug. 2 hugs maybe. That's it. I can count probably on my one hand the amount of time I've seen this man in person. Like, I haven't even, it's just so strange, y'all. So anyway, it just turned into this big mockery because I mentioned this man, and it was just this huge backlash I got on island. And I don't even know if he's married. I'm saying his marriage, but that's just the stuff they were sending with the technology. Remember, they can send you sensitization via the technology. I know for sure he has a child. I know he was in a relationship, a committed relationship. I don't know if at this point the man is married. He probably is. But nonetheless, they're making it seem like I was trying to, just randomly out of nowhere. Again, gaslighting. This is what they do with the targeting. Like, I just randomly sat one day and said, oh, I just want to randomly attack this person and talk about him in a video. It's just craziness to me. Anyway, so the thing blew up and eventually caused a lot of backlash for me until I made more videos just refuting things and articulating, and eventually things died down a little bit, and got a lot better for me. But nonetheless, when I went in the gym, that was in the height of when I had talked about that situation, and a lot of those guys know him. And so I think for a few of them at that point, I think they understood where I was coming from with talking about the situation, but it was still just kind of like this patronizing thing where it seemed like, again, taking things out of context, like I was making it seem like he was running me down or something like that, when that's not what it was. That's not what I was saying. Anyway, what happened is, and why I think they felt that way, was when I made the receipt video. Because I got so much backlash for just telling the story and mentioning him in the first place, oh my God, it turned into this thing where I felt like I had to prove that, no, it's not that I want him. It's not that I'm running him down and trying to break up his relationship. Look, I have messages where he sent me messages and I didn't answer. Like, if I wanted him, I would have responded then. And it just was bad. It was bad. It just kept getting worse and worse. The more I tried to defend myself and provide info and stuff, the worse the thing got. And also, too, by the way, those messages that I provided where he was sending stuff and I wasn't answering, all then I was being cyber bullied. Just so you know, I was getting messages from men on island using sensitization, like the word great, which is something that him and I used to use with each other, and bullshit and things like that. If y'all listen to my prior videos, you'll hear the whole rundown with that situation. It's from years ago. But I brought it up because it did play a part in my targeting. And I got so much backlash for it. So that too played a major role in my targeting. So anyway, I think that's what was going on when I got in the gym, why some of them were doing that patronizing thing. But they weren't being too nasty to me because I had at that point made more videos explaining things. So it was more so just like a patronizing thing, like, let's act like, we're thinking up with this, that kind of way, like that. And it wasn't all of them, it was a few of them doing it. But at the same time, still helping me use the machine, still being kind. Not like now where it's just like straight up harsh treatment going on in there. Now that the thing happened with that main dude that I'm about to talk about now. So anyway, y'all, here go the plane, the noise campaign plane. Let me put the phone up so y'all can hear. You can't really, I don't know if y'all can hear it good. Anyway, y'all, so a few of them were doing it. It wasn't all of them, but it was enough to make me uncomfortable, because the cameras are on me. I'm this lone female in there. Like I said, at the time, there were not many females in the gym, at least not in that specific gym. Excuse me. And I'm not really too sure how to handle all of this spotlight on me, because it's like, it's not just to say that, okay, a few of these guys are doing this extra, whatever you want to call it, right? This patronizing thing. But then I have the spotlight of the camera on me. I'm aware of the fact that everyone on island is watching. It was just extremely intimidating. I would consider myself to be somewhat of an alpha female, really more so technically a sigma female. And that's very different to an alpha. A sigma female is an introverted alpha female. So it's like you are strong and you can be a leader, but you're more so lone, right? And so even with that being the case, I'm very introverted, and all of that was just too overwhelming for me. Like, it was kind of overwhelming. And I noticed that some of the guys were not doing it. Like, there were a good bit of them that were just friendly and not doing it. It was just a few of them that were doing it. But again, it was enough to make me uncomfortable. So one of the guys that were not doing it was that guy that was in the back room that had initially started showing me how to use the machines and stuff. And I realized now that he's a personal trainer. So that's what he does, right? So anyways, I just eventually, like a good month into me going to the gym and, things still happening, I just eventually made this proclamation in a video. And to this day, I regret it so bad, y'all. Like, there's a few decisions I've made. What started the targeting? The text message. I regret that to the highest level. Then some decisions I made during the targeting. That's one of the things that I did during the targeting that I bitterly regret. It was like the biggest mistake, right? Doing this damn thing, saying this damn thing in this video, right? But eventually I made this proclamation in this video thinking that it would deter the few guys that were doing that patronizing tactic. And so I just I just made this proclamation, in the video. I said, it's funny, some of these guys are like doing this over the top thing or whatever. This is not verbatim what I said, y'all. I can't remember exactly what I said, but this is just the gist of it. Just basically pointing out that I'm noticing that a couple of them are doing this weird patronizing thing. And I said the guy that I actually would be attracted to, or that is my type, isn't doing it. That's what I said. Something like that. And it worked. Saying that worked. The other guys stopped doing what they were doing, because now it became this thing like, who is she talking about? Which guy is it that's her type, right? And eventually they figured out who I was talking about. But I didn't lie about him being my type, because there was a point where they were making it seem like I had just said that as a thing. I'm not a liar. One thing I'm not, even though they constantly keep perpetuating this false narrative that I'm a liar, is that I'm a liar. I'm not a liar. He is physically my type. I mean, it's a lot more to it than just the physical. But if we're just talking about physical appearance, he is physically my type, right? So I made that comment thinking that it would deter the other guys from doing what they were doing, and it did. They all stopped. But then it put the spotlight on him, and then it became like, okay, let's, utilize this person now. And he was already in there all the time. Every time I went in there, he was one of the main faces I was for sure going to see. I always saw him in there. No matter what time I went in there to work out, I was seeing him. He was always in there, and he was always very helpful and nice and stuff. And he made me feel comfortable. So I was like, let me say this, because I actually feel comfortable with this person. Let's just say this person is whatever. And it will stop the other stuff. And then even the cop. There was even a cop in there that was doing it, right? This cop that I mentioned. It's just a long story. I talked about this cop, y'all, if you've been keeping up with my videos. But before I had started working out in the gym, remember I told you I started working out in the gym at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of 2024. And I started working out again at home for 3 months at the end of 2023. Well, at the beginning of 2023, My younger sister and I, we were in the room talking on the bed. And you know the cameras are on us. So everyone on island is always privy to every conversation that I have. It's just the weirdest reality. It's just like the movie, The Truman Show. It's just a weird kind of reality. It's like being on a unscripted reality TV show that you didn't sign up for and you're not getting paid for, where everything is freaking on blast and everybody's a part of every little moment in your life. It's just a nightmare. But anyway, so she and I were talking, and for once I wasn't acting this kind of way. I said, you know what? She keeps coming in here trying to talk. Let me just act like the cameras aren't there and let's have a genuine conversation, or try to at least attempt. So she and I were talking, just random stuff, shooting the shit, talking about memories from back in the day and whatever else. And eventually we started talking about the guys we used to date, and we ended up talking about my older sister too and the guys she used to date, and how we're all kind of funny with the guys that we like. And it's like this certain kind of guy. It's, when I say funny, it's not a vain thing. It is kind of too, not really. It's really not. But like when I say funny, like, okay, who we're physically attracted to, and personality. That's a big part of it, more than looks. Personality, who we have chemistry with, because we all have unique personalities, and not just anyone can make us feel comfortable. When I say chemistry, I'm not talking about conversation necessarily. I don't just necessarily mean that the conversation is flowing. I'm also talking about your energy, your vibe. Are you somebody that I feel comfortable with, so that I do feel comfortable to open up and talk to you, and etc., etc.? Or are you somebody where I'm kind of like stiff up and the conversation's like feeling like this kind of guarded kind of way, is what I mean when I say chemistry. That's what I mean when I use the word chemistry, because that became a big thing in my targeting too, because I said something about me and the dude not having chemistry. Anyway, I'll get there in a minute. Right? So anyways, it's just so much, y'all. There's so much noise all over the place. It's just so irritating. Anyway, so she and I were having this conversation on the bed, and we started talking about the guys that we dated from back in the day, and guys that we didn't like for certain reasons. And then we were talking about this guy, the cop, that they're using on me now in the gym, and how my older sister didn't like him because they didn't have chemistry, because he was shy and introverted, and my older sister is typically more attracted to extroverted men. It's like she likes men that are like her, that are a mix of introverted and extroverted. And from observing this cop in the gym, he seems to be that kind of personality, but it just seemed like in that car, it just wasn't working out. Maybe he's shy when he's talking to girls at first, or whatever the case is, but in that car, it was not working out, A lot of guys used to like my sister back in the day, so I've seen her have different conversations with men. I usually used to tag along because I'm the younger sister, and this was one of those real awkward kind of like, it was an awkward vibe. I was in the back seat. It was very awkward. Anyway, so I remembered. I have good memory. I have the memory of an elephant. And I remembered her not liking him like that, and, whatever the case was, because she felt like he was too quiet or mousy or whatever. Not to use the word mousy. That sounds disrespectful. But like that, quiet. I'm not trying to disrespect him. But he's a good looking guy. I've even said that. So me saying that, oh my God, they actually recruited the dude and started using him in the gym. So what it was we were on the bed, and we briefly talked about him. We talked about so many other different dudes that my older sister dated more in depth than we did about this cop. But for some reason, specifically with this cop, it's like, I guess because they have access to him, he's a cop. They use law enforcement on you and targeting. They start using him in the gym when I actually got in there. So anyway, we were talking about all these different dudes that we dated and why we didn't like them or why we did like them, and that type of thing like that. We were even talking about this. It's so funny that we haven't mentioned this guy too. There's this like Santo dude, I don't want to be derogatory with my terms. Some people are offended by certain terms that you use, and I've offended so many people in the targeting, I'm like on eggshells. So let me not use the word Santo. A lot of people down here refer to people from the Dominican Republic as Santo, but some people might think that's an offensive term. So just in case, let me use a different word. This Dominican guy, he was half Dominican and half Puerto Rican, if I'm not mistaken. And he was good friends or best friends with my boyfriend at the time. And really good looking guy. A lot of girls used to like him. I remember my older sister, was talking to him briefly too. And she was saying that something with just stupidness, man. Like something with his top lip, good looking guy, just something with the top lip. She has really full lips, my older sister. And so I think she felt his lips were not thick enough for her. And so that was an issue. And we're just talking about stupid crap on the bed, man. Like what girls do, man. But oddly enough, his brother, that same guy's brother, and I know this is going to sound bad because I just said he's best friends with my ex-boyfriend, my first boyfriend, the first boyfriend I ever had in high school. His older brother is someone I used to have a crush on. And he played a part of my targeting too, because I was daydreaming about him when they put the technology in my brain, the microchipping RFID technology, and I didn't know. And so they played against me with his name on the pool game. And that was how I realized that they were in my brain, monitoring my thoughts. Anyway, and this is what I use as evidence to prove that I'm not homosexual. Excuse me, I just don't want to say gay or anything offensive. I don't have a problem with gay people. I've had gay guys that were my friends in the past. I don't want to use anything that's derogatory or that's going to offend anyone. But I keep using that point to prove that I'm not gay, because they were in my brain for a good God knows how long, monitoring my thoughts, and all they saw were thoughts about men. I didn't even know they were in my brain at the time. The only activity they've seen with a female again is 3 years later with this girl for my job, and it was not even like activity like what was going on in my brain with these men. It was more so just, not to say a lot of freaky stuff was going on in my brain with the men, y'all. I'm just saying like regular, like a I'm human thoughts, hello. But anyways, with the female, it wasn't anything like that. It was more so just this embarrassing dream that happened. It could have been technological. I've already shown y'all that they can send you dreams. I've done dream manipulation videos. But it turned into this embarrassing thing at the job, the day job when I was working there, y'all. And then it turned into this thing where I was overthinking the situation. And so then they started saying that I was thinking about it obsessively. And it was just a nightmare, y'all. Anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent and get into that, because I will briefly probably talk about that situation too. I don't want to talk about it too much. Like I said, I don't want to talk about anything pertaining to the job, since the situation is still pending. And, technically that's why I lost the job. It's a lot deeper than that. But, the videos got me in problems. Anyway, so back to the main point, y'all. So we were just talking about dudes from our past. That's random and irrelevant, mentioning that Spanish guy that we talked about. But I'm just saying, we talked about several dudes, not just that cop. And we went into detail about other guys she dated, more in depth than the cop. She had like one date with that cop. There were dudes she actually dated for real that we talked about. And dudes I dated that we talked about. And dudes that my younger sister dated that we talked about. But again, I think they just used him because they have access to him. He's a cop. So when I talked about him, I just remembered saying, like, there were some good catches that my older sister had, and she didn't really like them like that for whatever reason, the personality or, simple little minute things, like a lack of chemistry, the person's not talkative enough, that type of stuff like that. Anyway, so, or the lip isn't full enough because she has big lips, little stupid petty stuff like that. So I just remembered briefly when I was talking about the cop saying, oh yeah, there was even this cop that she dated that looked good and, he was too quiet or whatever. I just simply said that. And she met him, by the way, through her friend. Her friend was a model back then. They both modeled, my older sister and this girl that I'm talking about. But this friend, I think was dating another police officer that was friends with that guy. And so my sister ended up dating him, going on a date with him and, whatever. So anyways, y'all, fast forward to now though. So yeah, we had that brief conversation on the bed and the cop got mentioned, and I noticed he was even one of the dudes in there that was doing the patronizing thing. I didn't even recognize him at first because, like I said, I was younger. I was a child at the time when the date happened. My sister, I believe, was in her early 20s and I was a teenager, dragging along, following along, hanging out with my older sister. But my memory's just good. And so it wasn't until like the second or third time that I went to the gym, I just like, this is another dude that keeps looking me in the eyes. But with him, it was like the face was familiar. I'm like, who is this person? And so then when I went in there the third time, and he was also someone that was helping me with the machines. I remember I was in the back room trying to work the hip thrust machine and I couldn't get it. He tried to help me. And eventually he went out and ran and called the main trainer dude, the dude that I ended up having the big thing with, right? The one that I told you I was in the back room when I first went into the gym. Anyway, so he went and called him and the dude came and helped me. But nonetheless, he was one of them that was kind of doing that like patronizing thing, where looking you in the eyes and stuff. But for him, it just kept clicking. I'm like, I know this person. And then eventually his name just popped in my head and I said, wait a minute, that's the cop. I was like, oh my God, they want to track this dude down just because I mentioned him briefly in the video. I'm not in the video. It was on video, the live feed that's going on when you're targeted. But in conversation with my sister at the beginning of 2023, I'm like, oh my God. So anyways, that was before I made the big proclamation that all these guys are doing whatever. And there's, this one dude that I actually find to be my type that's not doing it. And it wasn't all these guys, y'all. It wasn't all of them. It was a few of them. It was like a small handful of them that were doing it. The rest were just pleasant. They were helping me with the equipment and they were minding their business. So anyways, I think it was just like the few that I think are friends with the dude, the cyberstalking, cyberbullying dude. I believe those were the dudes that were doing it. It was a small handful of them. Anyway, so nonetheless, and by the way, at the time too, because this is going to segue into what took place yesterday, and it has something to do with an Italian trainer who I've also made videos about. He was in the gym too around this time. He used to be coming in there too, training people in the area, but he was also one of those dudes that wasn't doing the over-the-top stuff. He was just minding his business. It was one time he did one thing, and I talked about this, I think, in a prior video. This is the only, I would say, gang-stalking thing that he did. There was a time where I was on the squat machine, and this was, like I said, at the beginning of last year or something like that, when I first started working out in the gym, around the time when these other guys were doing whatever they were doing. I remember he had some Spanish girl he was training, or maybe she was Italian. I don't want to say misinformation, because for the longest time I didn't know what he was. I thought he was Spanish. The next thing I thought he was Arab. I couldn't tell what he was. I called him racially ambiguous. Anyway, he was training another female that was racially ambiguous. She looked Hispanic. I could be wrong. And I remember they came on the machine right next to me. I was on the squat machine, the V squat machine, and he put her on the leg extension machine. And he's sitting across from her while she's doing leg extensions. And then they start talking about Garrett and the boat, and how Garrett took her on the boat for the weekend and this and that. And they're just basically talking about being, it was like segueing into being rich, like this directed convo about having money, basically. And remember, some of the offensive stuff I shared in my car in Florida, they took it out of context. It wasn't about rich people in general, because that's not a race thing. You have so many rich black people. Obama was the president of the United States, so you have a lot of rich black people too. It's not just white people that are rich. So it wasn't specifically about rich white people or rich people in general. I was sharing a lot of convoluted conspiracy type shit in my car. I was not in my right state of mind. I had been being stalked for months at that point. I was skinny and emaciated. I was living out of my vehicle. I had people on top of me gang stalking me. And I was just sharing a lot of crazy Delulu type Hebrew Israelite propaganda. And so part of it was this conspiracy theory from this one Hebrew guy, where he was talking about a specific family that's rich, that's in like the upper echelon, not just rich people in general. Again, this was one of the many things that I said that was taken out of context. So they made it into this thing where I was just talking about everyone that's rich, so that wasn't the case, because that's not a race thing. You have people of different ethnicities that are rich, especially in this day and age. But nonetheless, it was specifically like the Rockefellers, that type of thing, like that, like a specific family that has ties to the government. It was this big conspiracy theory thing that this Hebrew dude that I was sharing stuff from at the time was talking about. I was just sharing a lot of offensive stuff. I was angry, and I wasn't in my right state of mind. That wasn't what I was doing initially. Initially, I was looking up Hebrew videos talking about spiritual protection, because I thought there was witchcraft on me. That's the honest to God truth. They were on top of me. They were sending sensitization with the technology using the AI shadow networking software that I've talked about in several videos. Check out the links in the description box and comment section, pushing certain things. And then I had gang stalkers externally gang stalking. And so I got angry. I got livid. And that was when I started sharing the offensive content. Sorry for the loud noise, y'all. My brother's pulling up outside. Anyway, that was when I started sharing the offensive content, and I started just looking for anything I could find. And I even shared, like I said, that offensive conspiracy theory from this one Hebrew, where he was talking about, like I said, this rich family that has ties to the government, that's in the upper echelon, not just rich people in general. It's just another thing they took out of context and ran with. I'm not trying to come for this guy, right? I'm just saying enjoy it. And he's not the only one doing it. Like with the targeting, this is what they did. And they took that out of context. Anyway, so that was the only directed convo I had heard from him. Other than that, he was minding his business. He was working out in the area, training different people, right? That was the one interaction I had with him at the beginning of the year before anything ever even popped off at the end of the year, where he was doing this directed convo with this girl talking about Garrett and the boat. And they said something, I can't even remember. It was so long ago now that, kind of referenced the rich thing in directed convo. Y'all, let me let my brother come inside and I'll finish, because it's going to be a distraction. Y'all know the porch. My room is right next to the porch. So let me stop and I'll start again, and hopefully I get the video finished. Hopefully I won't have to stop again. Anyway, y'all, I'm back to finish the video. I just wanted to make a correction about a couple of things I said in the last clip, y'all. First of all, I'm just talking about it as if at the beginning of the video, I told y'all check out the links in the description box and comment section to find videos with pertinent info about the targeting. And I even told you that there's videos about the technology utilized on targets. So I was just kind of saying as if you already knew or were familiar with the neuromonitoring technology. Targets are microchipped with something called an RFID chip, which is an acronym for radio frequency identifier. And so they insert you, they use the insect drones to do it, which is another form of technology they use on you. They have actual mosquitoes that insert this microscopic chip, right? And so once you're microchipped, it's so small it can cross the blood-brain barrier. And from there, they can do something called computer interface, brain to computer interface. And they can hear your thoughts in real time. Everyone around you, I don't know exactly how the technology works, but I have videos talking about this technology. And it's basically like telepathy, technological telepathy. So when I was saying the things about thinking stuff about guys or whatever, and it wasn't that bad, just regular thoughts. I'm human, and them knowing about my thoughts. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. This is some real high science, sci-fi type shit. There are patents for the technology. And then you even have a Harvard DARPA scientist that talks about and validates the experience, the programming, the targeting, the program called COINTELPRO that everyday people like you and me are dealing with. And he talks about the agenda behind it and why they target people like you and I, not just high profile targets. So please, again, I urge you to check out the links in the description box and comment section and find out more information about this technology and this program. There are patents for it. There is a link in the description box where I share the patent for the technology. So check it out, y'all. Validate your experience and validate what I'm saying as well. Anyway, so that's what I'm talking about when I say my thoughts, like they're hearing my thoughts or the only activity they saw in my brain. That's what I was talking about. I just wanted to make that clear for anyone that's new to the video, and sits here and listens and isn't familiar with, the other components to the targeting, because that happens all the time. No matter how much I repetitively at the beginning of these videos say, please check out the links in the description box and comment section. Don't start here. Don't start at this video if you're new to the channel. You still have people starting here at this video. So that's why I redundantly or repetitively repeat certain things. And the other thing I wanted to clear up was the thing about my first boyfriend, because it sounds terrible. I'm sure that guy probably hates my guts. It is what it is. It was years ago. It is what it is. But with his best friend, right? That the one that my sister briefly dated, and I told y'all she didn't like his lips or whatever. His brother, his older brother, I told y'all I was daydreaming about when I first discovered that the technology was in my brain. This was in, I think, 2023, when they revealed to me that they were listening to my thoughts, right? And remember, I told y'all they played against me on the pool game with the guy's name, and I had just been daydreaming about him. So I remember that freaking me out, and me just doing more research and then learning about the brain to computer interface technology. And then that was when they started being very overt and blatant about the fact that they were listening to my thoughts. I think what it is was they sat quietly for a while listening and monitoring to see what they would see. And they didn't see anything that was incriminating, more so just embarrassing shit, like me daydreaming about that guy. And so then to torment me, they let me know that they were in there. So anyways, I wanted to clarify that too, though, because, again, that looks bad. I told you that he was the older brother of my first boyfriend's best friend. And what it was I knew him before I knew my first boyfriend. He was dating my cousin's friend loosely back in the day. When I was younger, in my early 20s and my teens, I used to party a lot. I used to go out with my older cousin, my older sister, and their friends. And then I had a couple of my friends that used to come. So I was really on the go out scene back then. And so I met a lot of guys just doing that, right? And so before I met my first boyfriend, who I also met through my cousin, by the way, my cousin's friend at the time that went to school with her was dating him, this guy that I'm talking about, that I was daydreaming about. So I knew about him before I ever knew my first boyfriend. And I had a crush on him from since back then. And it wasn't a crush like, because you know how they like to paint it like I'm thirsty and this and that. So I'm very wary about talking about men. I never came on to him. I never told my cousin I like him. It wasn't one of those things. It's just one of those guys that's well known on the scene. At least back then he was. He's, now like a has-been. I don't want to say has-been, but we're all older now. We're grown. We're in our 30s. Some of these people are in their 40s because they were older than me. So it was just a young schoolgirl crush, and my older sister thought he was good looking too. I remember we just saw him, and, my cousin thought so too. We just thought he was a good looking guy. It was one of those things where you're like, oh, that guy, yeah, whatever. It wasn't like this fantasy thing, right? So anyways, I just kind of knew about him, and we used to see him all the time because he used to be hitting a lot of the spots that we were hitting. So anyways, then later down the line, I ended up with my first boyfriend, but I had already had known this guy, right? I had already known of this guy. So now fast forward to years later, like a decade and change later, right? When I first got targeted in 2000, what am I saying? 2000? Y'all, I'm only 33. Definitely not 2000. I was a child in 2000. In 2020, when the targeting started, I didn't know I was a target. Remember, I didn't learn I was a target until I got back on island. So I lived here on island after the targeting started in 2020 for 2 years. Then I tried to relocate to the States summer of 2022. Things blew up, right? I explained to you all, if you listen to my videos, you'll hear the story. The thing followed me. I came back to the island I tried to relocate off of at the end of 2022. I did research, and that was when I learned I was a target. But before I left island, when I was still here on island before the targeting blew up, I was friends with that guy on Facebook, right? He had added me on Facebook, however it happened. And he used to play against me on the pool game. I remembered him just sending me a request on the pool game to play pool. So him and I used to play pool, and every now and then he would say, hey, like, hey, cutie, or, you know, write me like, hey, just little, he never hit on me. It's not like he said, hey, can I get your number, or anything like that. It was literally just, we were playing pool. And sometimes he kicked my ass, sometimes I would kick his ass, that type of thing like that. And so I just remember back in the day that I used to think he was cute. I never told anyone. It's not like a conversation I had like, oh, I have this crush on this guy. It was more so just like my sister and I and my cousin knew him. And we knew him to be this good looking guy on the scene. And he briefly dated my cousin's friend back in the day. I didn't really know her like that. So it wasn't like an encroaching on a friend's territory type thing. And I never tried to thing up with him, especially after I got with my first boyfriend. And, you know, he was the older brother of my first boyfriend's best friend. It wasn't a thing. And he was much older than me too. Like I said, I think now I'm in my early 30s. That guy is probably in his late 30s or early 40s. So anyways, Tim and I were playing on the pool game, and, you know, he sometimes would write me like these very generic, brief, you know, messages just kind of poking at me while we're playing the pool game. So of course now at this time when I got back on island after trying to relocate, you know, that thing went to the side. That was just random stuff. I left and came back to island, and my targeting was viral at this point. You know, and I was going through a lot of depressing stuff, and I was playing pool when I got back on island. And so I remembered I started daydreaming about him at this time. It was just, I was going through stuff and I was daydreaming. I'm a female, whatever, right? And so they were in my brain with the technology at this point, and they saw the daydreams, and to humiliate me, played against me on the pool game with his name. So that was how that happened. It wasn't like this trifling whole type thing where, oh, it was my, you know, somebody that was friends with my boyfriend. First of all, this boyfriend was my first boyfriend. I was with him when I was 15. I'm 33 now. This was like a decade and change ago when this relationship took place. It was years ago. And it wasn't, like I said, years later I tried to get next to this dude or anything like that. We were just kind of playing pool or whatever, and he was writing me these messages, and then I got back on island and I was depressed and dealing with all this crazy shit, and I started daydreaming about him. And they took it, you know, whatever. They took it and played against me on the pool game. It was humiliating. Anyway, so I just wanted to expound on that too, because I realized that sounds bad. It probably looks like I'm just like this trifling, they paint all these false narratives, and they keep trying to paint me in this like villainizing type of way. So I just feel like I have to over explain everything. Okay, back to the point though, y'all. Back to the story. So, where was I? Where did I leave off, y'all? Oh boy, I might have to, no, I left off where I was talking about the Italian trainer. The first interaction I really had with him was before things really got gnarly, right? Because remember, the gnarly thing started at the end of last year. At the beginning of last year, when I first had like an interaction with him, it wasn't a direct interaction. It was like he was doing directed convo next to me. And it was just kind of like the reference of having money, basically. And I remember him telling her, wow, well Garrett's lucky or something like that. Something like that, like Garrett's a lucky guy or something like that. Just they were doing directed convo, man, next to me. But then other than that, after that, it was nothing. He was just working out in the area, training people. And he wasn't one of those dudes that was doing the thing. You know, he was just literally in the area. I think after that, it was like 2 other interactions I had with him. It was very minimal stuff, like a whole year and change of working out with him. And I probably had like 2 interactions with him, actual direct interactions. One was he just one night came up to me and told me, hey, I just wanted to let you know I see what you're doing in here. And I see the progress you're making. Good job. That's what he told me, because I was squatting on the Smith machine, and every week I was trying to go heavier, and I had started at 90 pounds and I just kept going up and up and up. And I think at this point I had gotten to 200 pounds. And so he just came over one night and he said, I see what you're doing in here. And he said, I just want to tell you, good job. You're doing a good job. I said, thank you. That was it. Never had a conversation with him again. Again, he's in the area doing stuff. No direct contact with him. He wasn't doing sweet eye at me. He wasn't trying to get next to me. He wasn't doing anything. He was training people in the area. Then the second interaction I had with him was that he actually helped me, like kind of, you could say, saved my life in a way, because I was trying to go heavier again. And I went up 10 pounds from the 200 and it was too heavy. I wasn't ready. And so I didn't set the safety bars. I kind of had like this, I don't know, I just felt like I could do it because it was just 10 pounds heavier. But 200 at that time was already my PR. That was already my heaviest. And I was skinnier back then too. I hadn't gained as much muscle mass as I have now. And so I remember I put the 10 pounds on and he was in the area training someone. And I didn't put the safety bars high enough because I didn't think I would need to. But they were there, thank God. It was not like they weren't there at all. So I really would have been in a bad way. Anyway, so the thing crushed down on me, the barbell. And I remembered him just coming quick and pulling the thing off of me and just helping me in that way. And then other than that, it was nothing. Him and I weren't really having interactions. He was just in the area training people. Like, he was like a silent kind of constant in there too. He was kind of as consistently there as much as the other guy that ended up becoming the main guy, you know, the guy that I said was my type. They were both like consistent faces that I saw in there all the time. Anyway, so after I made the big proclamation that the main guy was my type, stupid, it's just like the spotlight was on him. Like, I could just tell things had shifted where they're like focus on him now because I said what I said. So it's just like, okay, we have this in our pocket as something we can utilize if we need to. But he was already always there. So it's not like it was something new where because I made that proclamation, okay, I'm seeing him every time now. I was seeing him all the time anyway. Like, every time I went in there, it didn't matter what time he was in there. So anyways, you know, every now and then he would have conversations with me, again, just giving me tips. He wasn't doing anything nasty or overt. You know, he wasn't bringing females around and making them bend down in front of me. He wasn't doing anything like that. He was just doing what he was doing before. Nothing really changed. I just could tell, again, the energy, and I could just tell the focus was on him. Like, a lot of those guys that were doing the stuff, they were kind of clamoring around him. And it was like this, I can't explain it, man. It was just like, it changed when I made that proclamation. They figured out it was him. I could just tell. So anyways, but other than that, he wasn't doing anything. He just every now and then still just giving me tips, you know, conversation. I remember one time he came up to me and he was talking to me about something, and he ended up telling me, giving me tips on how to gain weight, basically, because we started I don't remember what he said to me to make the conversation start. He said something. I think he was giving me a tip on how I was squatting, and I was asking him about muscle mass and how do you gain weight, because I'm going heavier and, you know, I'm just having trouble gaining muscle. And the thing about it is, y'all, I've explained this already, my body type. I'm a mix of a mesomorph and an ectomorph. So ectomorphs, if you learn the 3 different body types, they're the skinniest body types. So you have the endomorph, and those are the people that have a slower metabolism and it's harder for them to lose weight. And typically they're the strongest people in the weightlifting world. Like, if you look at all the power lifters like Eddie Hall or Brian Shaw or Thor Bjornsson, all those people like that, Iron Bibby, all of them are endomorphs. They're typically really strong and their bones are denser. So anyway, you have that body type, then you have the mesomorphic body type, which is mainly what my body type is. And that's the medium body type, where you're athletic, you have the square shoulders, you gain muscle mass relatively easy. You can also lose weight relatively easy. And then you have the ectomorph, and that's the more slender body type. And that's the person that has the super fast metabolism and longer limbs, and it's harder for them to gain muscle mass and to gain weight. And once they do get it right and they figure out the diet and the workout plan that works for them, a lot of people will argue that the ectomorph has a really nice physique because they tend to have like very lean waistline and tapered off waistlines and stuff like that when they get it together. But it's hard to get the weight and all this other stuff like that. And I'm a mix of both body types. I'm a mix of the mesomorph and I'm a mix of the ectomorph. And so although I am mesomorphic, I have a lot of ectomorphic qualities. Like, it's hard for me to gain weight, and I have a super fast metabolism. I have the long limbs. I have longer muscle bellies. Or I recently learned from just watching these videos, something was sent to me with the algorithm. I even have higher muscle insertions. So because my legs are longer and my limbs are longer, when I do fill out, it's filling out, especially in the leg area, higher up in if that makes sense. I could show y'all a video showing an example. Let me show y'all an example. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but let me show y'all an example of what I'm talking about.
This is why I don't wear shorts, and it's not because I skip leg day, because I almost squat 600 pounds and I train legs pretty consistent, but I literally look like a seagull in shorts. There's just nothing there. My legs look so small. It looks like I skipped leg day, and that's just because my quad insertions are so high. So when I actually pull my
So y'all see he has full legs, right? But when he's wearing shorts, and what he means is those type of shorts that go like right above the knee. I even have some shorts that I wore to the gym the other day, and I hated how it looked. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to cut it shorter to have the appearance that I want. And I'm like, I don't want to wear no pom-pom shorts to the gym. So I'm just like, this sucks. You know, with this type of body type, you have to get real full. Like, you have to do a lot of work, and you have to put on a lot of mass to see anything, or you'll have to wear really pom-pom shorts. You know, it's just like, it's so annoying. And when I say pom-pom shorts, y'all, that's island slang. It just means really short shorts. You see how he has to pull it up for you to see how his legs look? Like, when he's wearing the short pants, it just looks like he doesn't do leg day, right? Then he pulls it up and you can see how full his legs are because he has high muscle inserts. The way I would describe it, and another term for it, is longer muscle bellies, because you see he has long limbs, right? You see how long his quad muscle is? That's why it's like that. It's called a long muscle belly. So it's like, it takes more for people like us to fill out. We have to really fill out good for you to see the results, or wear really short stuff for you to see. Like, I remember when I used to jog in the neighborhood, there was this really short pants I used to wear, and it wasn't intentional either. I just didn't have much clothes. And it was an old short pants that I had in the low buffalo that I used to throw on. But when I would come back from my jog and look in the mirror, my legs used to look huge. And that's because the pants was so freaking short. But then when I started now wearing the longer short pants, you know, it's like you can't even tell what's going on until you pull it up and then you see, oh shit, wait a minute. And that's how it is. When I go in the shower, I can see my results, you know, and then it's like, if I wear these little short ass pants that aren't short enough, like kind of what he was wearing, you can't see it. It really sucks. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. They're making noise in the background trying to antagonize me. I could be cocky about my body type because I still have a good body type. I already showed y'all in prior videos that I have the hourglass shape. So despite all this thing I'm telling you here about having long limbs, I have apparently the ideal body type. And I didn't even know that because they bully me so much about my appearance. They had me fooled even. You know, I had to take videos of myself and look at myself to realize, okay, you actually don't look bad, girl. And I know that. But it's like they got in my head so fucking good. They had me confused. I'm like, I know sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I'm actually liking what I see. And then they're sending me so much bullshit, they be confusing me. But I found out by accident a couple months ago that I actually have the ideal body type because I was trying to order some clothes online. I don't have much clothes due to the targeting. I used to have such a huge wardrobe, y'all. I was a teacher and I had a lot of clothes. I had heels, everything. And I gave it away when I tried to relocate off island. I gave it away in Tennessee. And so when I got back on island, like I told y'all, I couldn't get the same jobs I used to get. Couldn't even get a job in the casino. The best job I was able to get as of recently was the correction officer job. And y'all know what happened with that. That's, you know, still something I'm trying to fight for. So anyways, the point is I'm broke, y'all. I do security at night. And I'm not shitting on the security. It's a good staple supplemental income. I was doing that all when I was teaching before I tried to relocate off island. When I was in the States, I was doing security when I was still in school as supplemental income. So it's a real good supplemental source of income. But to make it a main job is really difficult to do, especially the one I'm working now. I really make minimum wage doing this one. When I was doing security in the States, I made more money. So it's really difficult. It's literally something that's meant to be supplemental income and not a main source of income. So I'm struggling. And so I don't have much clothes. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent. A few months ago, I was just looking at workout clothes. I was going to order some stuff. And I started taking my measurements. I took the tape measure and I started measuring myself. And while I was looking at a video on how to measure your hips, and look at the person in the background hammering and getting triggered. Craziness. Anyway, I can't even help acting bothered. It's just crazy to me. And then it would look like I'm being this conceited person, but they keep attacking my self-esteem. It's weird. Anyway, so nonetheless, that's what it's all about, really just trying to humble me. That's really what it's about. Anyway, so nonetheless, I was looking at this video on how to measure your bust and not your bust, excuse everything. Just do your measurements in general, but your pant size. And so in this one of these videos I was watching, the lady was saying, well, if you want to know your body type, you can plug your measurements into this website. And so I just curious to know what my body type was. I never would have guessed hourglass, because for me, the perception I had of the hourglass body type, I was going to say Beyonce, but apparently Beyonce does have my body type, the hourglass body type, apparently. But I was thinking more of like those real curvaceous females. And I am curvy, but I'm not like super curvy. I'm slender. You know, it's like I have curves, but it's not like bussin' type stuff like that. You know, so I'm never thinking I have the hourglass body type, but it's all about symmetry apparently. And so it's like if your shoulders are the same exact measurement as your hips, and then you have a smaller waistline, you have the ideal body type, you have the hourglass body type. So apparently only 8% of females have this body type. I didn't even know I was a part of this 8% because they were dissing me up so bad with the technology, right? I was confused. So I put the thing and I thought it was a mistake. I said, okay, nah, this is an error. I'm like, okay, let me go to another website. So I started going to these different websites and I started finding some reputable websites and realizing, oh my God, I really have the hourglass body type. And I started looking up other females, like celebrities that have it, and I realized their body looked like mine. And I was like, oh shit. You know, I realized by accident that I had this body type. And I'm only saying that because all just now when I'm talking about having the long muscle bellies and the higher muscle inserts and how difficult it is for someone like me to fill out, they're making noise in the background again, attacking my self-esteem. It's what they did yesterday. Why I'm making this video in the first place, because of something that happened with one of the trainers and they tried to create something from it. And then when I left, they were doing all kinds of gangstalking in the road noise campaign with the technology to send in, you know, they do this thing where, you know, I have a playlist on Spotify. It deviates off the playlist on its own. I don't know why it does that. And then with the AI shadow networking technology, they'll purposely send these songs to sensitize me. Now you hear somebody revving in the background. This is what I'm talking. They have a real problem. That's what I'm telling you. A real problem. So anyways, they sent this horrible thing. I'm not even going to say what it was, insulting my looks. And so I remembered the whole ride I was looking like, you know, like I was feeling so bad. You know, I'm just like, this is like, they want me to feel humiliated and humbled. It's just so terrible what they do. Anyway, so I just think that was God's work right there. Me finding out my body type. I just really think that was genuinely God because of the way they attacked me and bully me and stuff. Anyway, so I found out that I had the ideal body type from doing my measurements. So despite me having the long muscle bellies and whatever else is going on, I have the hourglass body type. Everything's symmetrical. My hips are the same measurement as my shoulders, and my waistline is significantly smaller. So anyways, I do have a good body type to work with. It's just harder to fill out, is all I'm saying. And now I've lost weight too since I lost the job. I was really getting results. A few months ago, I was really starting to fill out. And then I lost a lot of my gains because I wasn't able to afford the protein, and there's a certain amount of protein you have to take. If you're into working out, you know this, y'all. I know I'm going off on a tangent, not meaning to. Again, it's them with their noises in the back. This is what created the recent thing that happened that I'm about to document when I finish summarizing what started everything in the gym. The now new thing that's kind of happening with this Italian trainer. It had everything to do with them doing noise campaigns in the background. It's the same thing, and me responding and then getting in more problems because of some stupid. I'm gonna explain in a minute, y'all. Anyway, so back to what I was saying though. Let's get back to the story so I could get to the documentation of what took place yesterday. So anyways, so he started talking to me. He was off and on. This is what he would do. Like every now and then just give me tips and make conversation with me. It was never like he was coming on to me. It wasn't ever anything like that. It's not like as soon as I made the proclamation, he started breathing down my neck. That wasn't the case. He just continued to consistently be the way he had been being, you know, just a constant presence there and being helpful. So anyways, he started making conversation with me about something. I think he was telling me about how I was squatting. I can't really remember, but we ended up talking and having convo. And that was when I found out his age too. I realized that he was 40, in his early 40s, like I think 42 or something like that. So he's like a decade older than me. Anyway, so he was telling me that, you know, your muscles can take a lot more than you think, your leg muscles specifically, because that's like the strongest muscles in your body. And so he was saying, I'm probably not doing enough. And so I remember like that advice he gave me was the reason why I actually did start. I was already going heavier and doing stuff and pushing myself. But that was why I started to up the reps that I was doing and trying to do stuff like that to push my legs further because I feel like I wasn't pushing it enough. Anyway, in the conversation though, I'm trying to remember why I'm bringing up. I think I'm just talking about what took place with him before things got bad. That's what it is. Okay. I have to remember, y'all, because I went off on that big tangent about my body type because of them in the background with their stupidness. So anyway, that's what it was. It was really just off and on him and I having just very basic conversation, like him giving me advice about training and stuff. And that was where I discovered we didn't have chemistry. They ran without me saying that. I'm not saying anything offensive. I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say that. I just mean to say certain guys I've met, like he obviously made me feel comfortable. That's why I made the whole proclamation in the first place, because he was one of those guys that, although the other ones were helping me too, he didn't feel like he was doing this disingenuous, patronizing thing. He seemed like he was just giving authentic advice, right? So I felt like he was a safe person to say this about, and he genuinely was my type too. But I didn't feel like a spark is what I'm saying. Like typically with a guy that I have chemistry with, because of the kind of personality I have, it takes a special, I said this years ago, even in 2023 when I was making my videos, I said this. It takes a special kind of personality for me to feel comfortable enough to talk outside of just the basic surface level conversation. I can't really explain what it is. I don't know to this day to explain it to you. I just know some guys have it and some guys don't. I would even venture to say, let me not bring up this person. There's someone in my recent life that I had conversation with that I had chemistry with. Like, it's just, I can't explain it. Like, it's not that he didn't make me comfortable. He did. I said that already. But it's like certain guys make me feel comfortable enough to open up and feel like I could talk and flow with my conversation. That wasn't happening with him. I didn't feel that level of comfort where I could just sit there and just talk and talk and talk. I didn't feel that kind of comfort, if that makes sense. I was more closed off, and I was more so just like ask questions about the training. And I didn't feel like I can sit here and be like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about this and talk about that. Like, it just didn't feel like that. I just didn't feel that level of comfort with him, if that makes sense. That's what I meant when I said that. Anyway, so nonetheless, nothing other than that really happened that was crazy. He wasn't bringing people around and doing offensive stuff. He wasn't, the stuff that he started doing at the end of the year. He wasn't doing anything like that. He was just constantly there training people. That was it. The most thing that happened between him and I before the big thing blew off was that he asked me if I wanted to go on a hike. And this was like months after I had said whatever I said in my video. It's not like right away he did that either. It was like months later. I think they were authentically going on a hike and he just invited me. And I remember, I'm really good at remembering things. It's just how my memory works. Okay, I don't know why they're slamming something down out there for. Anyway, I'm really good at remembering things. This was the day when I had deadlifted 250 pounds. So that was the heaviest I had ever deadlifted in the gym. This was last year. Now it's, I'm at 300. But that was literally the day I had deadlifted 250 for the first time. He came up to me and he told me that they're doing this hike in. He was telling me this person's going and that person, and it's just a few of them in there that go, and he should point out some people. And he said if I want to go, just let him know whatever. He gave me his number. I never used the number. I did use it a week later on the day of the day before the hike. I just texted him and I said, hey, I don't think I'm going to go or whatever, because I'm targeted. Everybody's watching me. Typically I would go on a hike, even if it's not for a romance thing, or anything like that. It's just cool. Like these are people that work out and they're doing fun outdoorsy stuff. That's typically what people like that do. You hang out with each other and you do fun stuff that you're into. That's normal human activity and behavior, but I'm targeted. So everything is not normal for me. So I just kept thinking in my head how awkward the whole thing would probably be. I'm like, no thanks. Like in my head, I'm just like, nah, because it's just going to be a very awkward. All I could think about was how awkward it's going to be. And at this point too, I know they can hear my thoughts. So I'm just thinking the whole day is going to be an awkward thing for me. So I just remember texting him the night before, like a week later. I just said, hey, I don't think I'm going to go. I made some excuse. And he said, okay. That was it. I never used his number again. And the reason I keep pointing it out is because I keep pushing this false narrative of thirst and this and that. If I were really that thirsty, I would have hopped on the opportunity to go on a hike with this man. I would have been utilizing his number. It's not like that. That's not what's going on. So anyways, after that, he still acted normal. It's not like he got an attitude with me or anything. He continues to act normal, continues to act like himself. It's not like he started doing the offensive stuff after that happened. Nothing. He was just acting like his normal self, man. Just wave at me when he come in, like one of them jolly Irie Rasta man type people is what he remind me of. Like just jolly Irie Rasta man. So anyways, now, fast forward to the end of the year. At this point now, I was working, no, this was before I started working the correction officer job. This was right before I started working the correction officer job. It was getting harder and harder for me to get to the gym. I couldn't catch taxi. I told y'all the taxis would not stop for me. The public bus, coming late some days, or some days they're saying the bus ain't coming. It was just, and then some days the bus would come. It mostly, for the most part, did come. but it would come late. Like I would come the time that it's supposed to show up. Or in fact, I would come an hour early. And that time where it's supposed to show up, it wouldn't show up. It would show up for the next time slot, like 2 hours later. So I'd be waiting like 3 to 4 hours just sitting there on the stoop in the shopping center waiting for a bus. You know, and they used to do gangstalking tactics where they would have people that ride the bus come up and say, oh, the bus is having mechanical issues? Oh, no. You know, stuff like that, direct to combo. You know, and that used to happen like all the time. It was just so frustrating. And so it just eventually, you know, got harder and harder for me to get to the gym. And I was very determined to get to the gym and get my workouts done. So I decided, okay, well, and this was before I had my car, y'all. So I decided, well, I know my mom teaches. She teaches at the school I used to teach at. And my gym is on the way, you know, en route when she's going to work, she has to pass my gym. So I'm like, what I can do is ride down in the morning with her and get dropped off to the gym. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so I asked her and she said, sure, no problem, whatever. And so in the morning times when I would get off from doing security, remember I do night shift security. This is how bad I wanted to get to the gym. Let's tell you, it's not a thirsty thing. I'm going at the wee hours of the morning, right after work. Like, this is just how bad I want to get to the gym. So anyway, I just come straight off work, bathe, put on my workout clothes, and I hop in the car with my mom and ride down with her and go to the gym. So when I first started going there, it was like a whole different crowd of people. Like, people I had never seen before. A lot of them were older. Most of them were older people. But a lot of them were people that you could tell was like probably the working crowd. People that have work and they want to like squeeze a workout in before work. That's who I was seeing in there. I wasn't seeing that dude, the main dude that said it was my type. I was not seeing the Italian guy that started getting inserted into the targeting that this video is actually about. Because I'm about to talk about something that happened with him yesterday, y'all. We're finally getting to the main point of the video. I was not seeing any of these people in there. All I was seeing were new faces. And just relatively regular people you could not really come to the gym at this time. So anyways, I start working out and doing my thing. And, you know, I want to say like about a week in to me working out in the morning time, I started to slowly but surely every now and then see the guy that I said was my type. And it wasn't like I'm seeing him during the workout. It was after the workout. Like I noticed one day he came in towards the end of my workout. He came, told me, hey, and then he disappeared inside the gym. It looked like he was setting stuff up. And I just finished getting myself up, you know, finished my workout and I left. Then, you know, it happened like a few days later, I see him again. And so that's how it started happening. Like every now and then at the tail end of my workout, he'll come in and wave at me. And then that's it. I leave. Nothing. He wasn't doing crazy stuff. He wasn't coming for the whole workout. None of that was happening. Then I made this video talking about my grandfather because my grandfather had passed away. And, you know, they were sending some really horrible sensitizing stuff with the technology. I'm like, damn, how far are they going to take the targeting to the point where they're not even respecting a relative passing away? Like they're still doing gang stalking stuff. And I just lost a relative. Like, really? And so I remember making this video about it and talking about, I started, you know how I do, like kind of like what I did in this video, going off on a tangent and talking about, you know, how my targeting got as viral as it did. And some of the powerful people that I pissed off in the mainland when I tried to relocate and I shared the offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda. And I just started talking about a rehashing and opening a can of worms, some of the offensive stuff I shared. And I think just rehashing those things, even though they know that I said these things, is kind of just like peeling the Band-Aid off of a wound or just opening the can of worms again. I think it just created tension. You know, I think it pissed off, obviously, anybody that's of that race that I offended. It wasn't just white people I said offensive stuff about, by the way. Like I said offensive stuff about Christians. A lot of people got hit when I was going through what I was going through and I was sharing that offensive stuff. It wasn't just white people. By the way, y'all, check out my last video where I showed you all that I have white in me. I guess that doesn't matter. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are racists out there that have said racist things or prejudiced, in my case, things. And they have that same race in them. That happens. It does happen. So, I mean, that doesn't really excuse or negate the things I said, but I'm just trying to prove that I'm not really truly prejudiced. I was just angry and sharing hurtful stuff because I was hurt. But anyway, nonetheless, whatever the case is, check out my last video, y'all, where you can see my grandma, right? You can even see how my ex-boyfriend looked. One of my ex-boyfriends. Anyway, y'all, so whatever. I was sharing offensive stuff and I started to kind of rehash it in this video that I was making about my grandpa. And so I think saying those things offended that race again. And so, and when I say that race, I mean white people. And so when I went to the gym after making that video, in the morning time, I just noticed that I saw the Italian guy in there. And he's working out. I had never seen this man work out before. Like, all the time when he was coming to the gym, when I was going at the other time, he was training people. I had never seen the man work out before. He's working out, all of a sudden going ham, and he looked pissed too. He looked really pissed off. I'm hearing noise outside, y'all. He looked pissed. He was like, you know, when you're having a bad day or a shitty week or whatever, and you get into, if you're into working out, then you can empathize or relate, right? And you go in the gym and you take it out on the weights. I mean, literally, that's me all the time anyway, with everything I'm dealing with. But he looked pissed. And he was going ham. He was working out, pushing some heavy weight, and he looked pissed off. And so I remembered I had already started kind of moving awkward around him because of what happened, the embarrassing thing with the weight crushing me and him having to help me. I'd already started kind of moving awkward around him. I'm just an awkward, shy person. And so now that I'm here in the gym and I'm now seeing him at the time I'm coming in the morning time, this is the first time I'm seeing him, and he's working on going ham and looking angry, I felt even more awkward. I'm like, should I tell him hi? You know, because I feel like I should say hi, but I mean, at the same time, I don't know, he looks real pissed. And so I remember just thinking to myself, I wonder if it's because of that video I made. Like, instantly, I thought that in my head. Because I remembered I had talked about some of that offensive stuff I shared in my car in Florida, and he looked pissed. And he was going ham in the workout. And he never came during this time before. Remember, this is a whole new gym time for me, and I had, at this point, been coming for about 2 weeks, and I hadn't seen him. And I just made that video, and then now I'm seeing him, and he's going ham. So anyway, he was even doing this noise thing that they do sometimes. Some of the guys started doing on me. It's like this thing where they would like make this noise whenever they're working out because of something I said in my video about lifting so heavy that I have to go, you know, because the weight is so heavy. And he was doing that. He was going, like making the noise thing. He just looked pissed. He looked livid. So anyways, I was just like, okay, this is definitely like gang stalking. And I think it's because of that video I made. So I remember just kind of tiptoeing around him and doing my workout. And then when I got home, I made a video about it, talking about why I think he started coming, you know, at this time now that I'm here, and why he looked angry and why I think whatever is going on. And I even mentioned the fact that I don't know what his race is. And he's, you know, racially ambiguous. It's like a mystery. You know, one minute he looks as Hispanic. I never guessed Italian. But one minute he looks Hispanic. The next minute, you know, he was looking Arabic to me. And then at certain times he did look white. Not totally white. He just looked like, you know, one of those, like I said, racially ambiguous people. Almost like my grandma, actually. He didn't look anything like my grandma. But I mean that same kind of look where it's like this racially ambiguous look where one minute the person looks white. The next minute you're like, are they Spanish? Are they mulatto? What are they? You know, that's what I couldn't tell. And so I figured, you know, he probably has white in him. If he's, you know, not white totally, you know, he definitely probably has white in him. Because I made that video and then here he is looking pissed and working out. So anyway, I made a video about it when I went home and, you know, just kind of apologizing if I said anything offensive when I was reopening, I guess, that can of worms and retelling or sharing some of the stuff I showed in my car in Florida. So anyways, I in that video also mentioned the fact that I didn't know if he was of that race or if he was mixed with it because he's racially ambiguous. And then the next day he comes with the Italian flag tied around his head. So that was like clear as day telling me I'm Italian. So even though that's a nationality, that was clear as day. That's a European, not totally. You have black people that are Italian too and different stuff, right? But for the most part, that's a European nationality. People of that nationality, typically their ethnicity is white or they have a large percentage of that in their bloodline, obviously. So when he came with that little headscarf, I was like, okay, so that's what's going on. So I understood. I did my thing. I, you know, made the apology. Nothing else I could really do about it. And then eventually I even took the video down. But from there, he was just there in the morning time. He's coming consistently. After that, every morning I'm seeing this man. Every morning I'm seeing him in there. And just working out. You know, eventually he wasn't looking mad anymore. But the point is he's now there. Like inserted into, and now that I know that he owns a gym, I'm certain it was gangstalking. Now that I know he actually has his own gym, it's obvious that he's coming there working out to be there at the same time as me to gangstalk because of whatever that I shared. So anyway, then I also start seeing the guy that I said was my type. It's no longer that he's every now and then at the end of certain workouts coming and I'm seeing him. It's every workout. It's him and the Italian guy, the both of them there. Like, they're beating me to the gym. Like, I'm coming to the gym and meeting them there. Working out. Like, that's what it turned into. To the point where I'm going and they're in there already. Doing stuff, right? So I was like, okay. You know, this is obvious gangstalking. What can I do about it, you know? So anyways, I noticed at this time, I heard the Italian guy's name. Because what used to happen was every now and then when I would see him, what would pop in my head was the name Garrett. Because of that initial interaction thing that happened at the beginning of the year with that girl that I told you guys about. every now and then, it didn't happen all the time, when I would see him, the name Garrett would pop in my head. I don't even think he put that together. I don't know. I don't think they even realized that was happening. I was successfully pretty good at blocking it out, but every now and then the name Garrett would pop in my head. But because I felt the angst of him being there, and knowing that it was obviously gang stalking because of this offensive video I made, it created this level of angst for me. And so I heard his name, someone said his name. And so I started to realize, I'm sorry, I'm getting bassy about the whole thing. The whole thing just shakes me up. Once I learned his name started to tick in my head like crazy. So every morning now, I'm going and this man is in there, and also the other dude is in there, and his name is ticking in my head like crazy. And to prove it's not a thirsty thing, I knew the other guy's name, the other trainers that I said was my type. I knew his name when he gave me his number. His name wasn't ticking in my head. That's never happened. But with this Italian guy, as soon as I learned his name, the thing's ticking in my head like crazy. And it was anxiety and angst. Because I knew the reason he was there. I know he's there because of the offensive things I've shared. And then also, too, there was already this awkward thing with him because he, had to pull the weight off of me. So I was already moving bassity and embarrassed about that, too. So it was just like this level of anxiety and nervousness. And so it just created like this tick with his name. It was just consistently, but it's not going to stop me from going to the gym. I, through hell or high water, was getting to that gym and getting my workout done. So I wasn't going to let this stop me. But it just made the workout so uncomfortable, man. It really did. And then too, like sometimes the offensive term that I was using in my car in Florida for that ideology, that Hebrew Israelite ideology, sometimes that would want to pop in my head too, because I knew that was why he was there. And so it was a mix of those two things wanting to pop in my head, but mainly it was his name that was popping in my head. That was the main thing that was popping in my head. And so it was just like this, it created this thing for me. Like it was just really anxious, nerve-wracking for me, but I still was going to get my workout in. It didn't matter. But nonetheless, when the tick started, this is when, and they all saw this happen. I'm not making this up. I'm not lying. It's not some Delulu fanatical thing. They all saw this happen. Because they keep making it like I'm making stuff. They all saw this happen. They even started to do the tactic. One of the things he started to insinuate me being trash, they even started doing it on Island. So anyways, as soon as this guy's name starts ticking in my head, that was when I noticed that the other dude, the guy that I said was my type, started doing like these really passive aggressive gang stalking tactics. One of the things was bringing like this younger female. She looked like she was in her early 20s, like maybe my younger brother's age. Bringing her around. She's wearing the scantily clad, clothes. She's wearing like a sports bra and this little short pom-pom shorts. Just bringing her around me every area that I'm working out, and he's bringing her around me, right? And that's not bad, if that's not bad enough, because I'm used to him being around trading people. When I get on the Smith machine, I like to look in the mirror and do my squats. He brings this girl in one day and makes her start doing RDLs right in front of the Smith machine. So I'm squatting down, and my face is eye level with this girl's private parts. I kid you not. Like, look up the workout RDL. You know what that looks like, right? So she's doing RDLs. It was just such an odd location for him to put her to do the RDLs. It's like this big open space. And I'm on the Smith machine, and you can see that I'm looking in the mirror doing my squats. It's not even to say like he just put her in my line of vision. He went right in front of the Smith machine. And he starts bending over his damn self to show her how to do it. So I'm seeing his booty too. And then he moves and she's bending over. And so every time I'm squatting down, my face is eye level with this girl's private parts. So I remember making a video about it because it really perturbed me. And if you look at my videos, y'all, you will understand why the bending over is sensitization for me. It's something that happened to me in Florida pertaining to the false narrative that was created from the text message. And this PTSD anxiety reaction I had to someone bending over. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so disturbing. Let me just, if you've been keeping up with my videos, y'all know what I'm talking about. So I don't really have to go into detail. But I will scroll down to the video where you can hear more details about it if you don't know what I'm talking about. This video right here, y'all, that you can see is from a year ago. It's really from basically 2 years ago. It's a year and change ago. But because it hasn't been a full 2 years yet, it's saying a year ago. Anyway, so you can see it says sharing stimuli used to sensitize me. And you can see the little short black pants in the man. That's an RDL he's doing, by the way. That's what RDLs look like. So imagine this girl was doing this. And a pants about that height. in front of the Smith machine while I'm squatting down. So every time I'm squatting down, she's bending over and doing the RDL, and her privates is in my face, basically. So I would have to close my eyes to not see it. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, check out that video so y'all can understand how that started being utilized against me, that sensitization, right? Because I completely eradicated that narrative or that thing they were trying to run with. And so now they just do it in a mocking way. They don't actually even do it as much anymore. But he did do it at the end of the year. He did make her do that. And it was obvious gangstalking at the end of the year. That was one of the things he did. Another thing he did was insinuating that I was trash. To this day, they're still using that on me. The trash thing. So what he did was, the Italian guy's name started taking in my head. I remember I was doing my squats, and I explained to you guys when I do the squats, I get really winded. And so sometimes I'll stand underneath the AC vent, and something about the AC hitting my nose or whatever, it's scientifical. Like, I saw this video talking about tachycardia. And tachycardia is when your heart starts, like, almost like an arrhythmia, starts speeding up. It can be from anxiety. It can be that you had too much medication. Whatever it is, a good technique that you can use is put cold water on you. And something about the sensory, the nerves, the nervous system, something about feeling that cold water can help slow down your heart rate. So obviously when you're weightlifting, your heart rate speeds up. And also there's pressure on the vagus nerve, so it makes you feel winded. That's why you see some people that lift super heavy pass out. So what I typically do is I bring cayenne pepper or oregano oil to the gym, and that opens up your blood flow, your blood vessels, and makes the blood flow smooth. So I'll do that, and then I go underneath the AC, and I realize that here's a cycle with the hammer getting triggered again. Anyway, so I'm sorry, y'all. It's noise campaigns. The same person on me all day long. I'm so glad we're moving from this neighborhood, y'all. And it's not everyone in this neighborhood that does stuff, but on this street specifically, you have a few people that are really, real irritating. Most targets deal with this. There's always that one gang stalker, right? There's somebody that I think has mental health issues that they give access to the camera. And they have like this hammer, and they start going off. When certain things trigger them, they just start going off with the hammer in the background. Anyway, so nonetheless, so I went underneath the AC like I always do to catch my breath. And while I'm under the Italian guys in the area training someone, and I looked up and saw him, and his brain started ticking in my head. And so I was trying to stop the tick, and I couldn't stop it. It popped in my head. And then the trainer dude walks by me to the garbage, and he was eating something that looked like mango or something, some sort of fruit, something he was eating. It was yellow of all colors, but yeah. And so he goes to the garbage, and he looked at me this kind of way, like he looked at me from the corner of his eye, and then he opened the garbage, and he threw the thing in the garbage slowly. So I remember then thinking that he was insinuating that I was trash, because the name had ticked in my head, and then he did that. So I was wondering, is he trying to, say that I'm trash? I remember thinking that, but I was like, I don't want to make assumptions. And that's what's been getting me in trouble, is making these assumptions. This is what the whole targeting is about, them saying that I bear false witness and I assume things and this and that. So I was like, let me, I'm going to try not to think that. Maybe that was just a coincidence. It's just like the name tick happened, and then he's here sliding through. He looked at me, and then he throws this thing in the garbage. I'm like, okay, but whatever. I didn't make anything of it. And at this time, he had already made the girl bend over in front of the garbage too. Not in front of the garbage, excuse me, in front of the Smith machine. I had already made that video about what he had done with that girl. He was making her bend over in front of me, and all her booty in my face and stuff. So I'm like, he's definitely doing some passive aggressive stuff. So I definitely thought he was insinuating I was trash, but I tried to get ahead of myself and not overthink things like I always do. And so I was like, nah, he ain't doing, okay, maybe not. Maybe it's a coincidence. Even though I knew. When you know stuff, man, I knew. So anyways, now when next day comes and I'm doing this workout on the Smith machine, this new thing I started doing where I take like the safety bars and I put the barbell on the safety bars, and then I'll put like the weight that I would typically squat, let's say it's 200 pounds or 180 pounds, I'll put it as low as the safety bars, because I put the safety bars to the level that I squat at. I squat ass to grass, y'all. So I would put the safety bars to that level. So if I need to bail out of the squat, I'll have squatted all the way down, and then I can just let it fall onto the safety bars. Well, I saw this workout online, this new thing that I wanted to try, where it's almost like emulating a pause squat. And a pause squat is where you go down with the weight and then you pause. So instead of bouncing back up and having that momentum to help you bring the weight back up, you're pausing at that level with that heavy weight on you, and then you have to use all your strength with no momentum to push the weight back up. That's really difficult to do, and so that's why it's so impressive when people in the bodybuilding world are squatting like super heavy weight and they're doing pause squats. So it's kind of like emulating that movement because I'm starting with the weight at that level. I would put the barbell on the safety bars and I would put like 180 pounds on it, get underneath the barbell in a squat position and try to push the barbell up off of the safety bars. So I remember I was able to do it with 180 pounds successfully. And then when I put 190 on the barbell, I was really struggling. I kind of got it, but I couldn't get it. It fell back down on me. And so I remember when I tried to do it and I couldn't get it, then the trainer dude goes into the room where the garbage is. It's this little room that's underneath the AC vent. This little room that's a cooler with a fridge. There's a door where you could head to behind the desk where the owner sits. And then there's to the right side in this little room, a garbage, like 2 garbage cans. And then outside of the room, right, is this AC vent. And that's typically where I go to catch my breath and stuff. So he immediately, as soon as I filled the thing, I felt, and I had this embarrassed look on my face. He goes straight into there and starts changing the garbage. And he walks by with this big, huge bag of garbage and goes into the bathroom and stuff. So I'm like, nah, man, this dude is definitely insinuating that I'm garbage. Like, this is the second time that coincidentally something happened. And then he's dealing with garbage. And I'm not the only one that thought that, because then when I left, I saw gang stalkers doing it outside of the gym. Like, they're all watching everything, play by play, moment by moment, minute by minute. And a lot of them, like, they'll see one tactic used and then they'll start to copy and do it. It's like this follow fashion type thing sometimes with a gang stalking. So he actually created this new tactic in the targeting where they're insinuating that I'm trash. So I'm not the only one that thought so. Literally, when I left, I saw several people doing it where they purposely to antagonize me because I saw what he did, throwing trash or acting like they're changing the trash when I'm walking by. So I'm like, oh my God, like, he just created something new in my targeting. But anyway, nonetheless, so that was where I realized, like, this is definitely some beef. Something's going on. I'm like, he's doing some real passive aggressive stuff. I still bit my tongue. I still didn't say nothing offensive about the dude. I didn't make a video about it either. The only thing I made the video about was the thing where he made the girl bend down in front of me, because that was just completely, that pissed me off. That shit pissed me off. The garbage thing, again, I wasn't too sure about it. When he did it the second time, I realized, oh yeah, he's calling me trash. But I still didn't make a video about it. But I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So now there's this day where I was doing deadlifts, and he's doing this thing where he's going in the bathroom, and every time I do the deadlift, he's coming out. Then he's going in the bathroom, and then when I get back into the deadlift, he's coming out and going back and forth and coming out and going back. I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. And he's blocking the mirror too while he's doing it, because every time I'm standing up, he's walking in front of the mirror. He's going back and forth. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So I remember I finally had a reaction. I flipped on the dude. And this is why they're attacking me in the gym. He started with me first. It was like random. It felt like a random attack. I had been working out with the dude for so long, he wasn't doing stuff like that. Anyway, so it felt like a random attack. And so now I finally have reactive abuse, a reaction. And it's like, it's the worst thing in the world. I'm the monster bitch, and they're using yellow on me. And because he wore this yellow suit in the gym one time and all this extra stuff is just so unfair. I'm like, okay, this is so reminiscent of what happened with the cyberbullying dude. It's like part 2. It's literally like part 2 to that. So anyways, so I went off on him this day, right? I just finally went in on the guy, and I insulted his looks too. And whatever else I did, I just went in on him. I kind of just mentioned the fact that, I'm just being honest with what I said, y'all. I was just angry, reactive abuse, lashing out, similar to how when I shared the offensive things about white people, reactive abuse. A lot of racially charged things happened in Indiana. And if you listen to my videos, y'all will hear about it, which led to some of that offensive shit I shared in my car in Florida when I got down to Florida. It was just like months and months of antagonization, harassment, and I was lashing out at everyone. It was not just white people, but they were one of the main groups that got hit. I mean, it is what it is. I never apologized. I don't know what else I could do. Anyway, so nonetheless, I lashed out on him and I said nasty things similar to, like I said, what happened in my car in Florida. I went in on his looks. I was talking about the fact that my type is typically a nice body with a bad face or an okay face, not necessarily a good face. And his face isn't bad, by the way. It's not. It's just, he's not a pretty boy. I don't typically like pretty boys or go for pretty boys. I used to back in like high school. Like the guy that I told you guys I had this big crush on, that was my best friend for years and years. And, he used to do weird stuff where it's like hinting that he liked me, but then doing immature stuff. And we were kids. Okay. Nonetheless, I told y'all, I talked about him. I mentioned him in like my full story or whatever. He was a pretty boy. He was like this pretty boy, but he was also muscular. But I've always more so had a thing for muscular guys. I didn't really care about the face like that. It really wasn't until that guy from high school where I started liking pretty boys, because I wasn't ever really into pretty boys like that. I'm more so the kind that like rough men, rough guys that are muscular and that type of thing. So anyways, for years and years and years, my type really, for the most part, and I'm not, again, vain, I have dated so many different types of guys outside of whatever my type is. I'm just saying everyone has a type. And obviously you date outside of the type if you meet somebody that you have chemistry with or that you genuinely like as a person. That's happened so many times to me. But everyone has a physical type. Like, for instance, that guy from high school, even though he dated outside of his type, he liked lighter skinned females. But after talking to me, he was in a relationship with a dark skinned female. She was very dark skinned. So, I mean, it happens. You might have a type, a physical type, but you date outside of it if you're not a vain person. Some people are so vain they can only date their type. I'm not like that. They took it like I was this vain bimbo bitch because I said I have a type. There are so many people that have types. They just want to have a problem with me. They don't like me as a person. So anyways, nonetheless, typically if we're just talking physical and I'm not getting to know the person and seeing if I like you outside of you being my type or not, typically if we're talking physical, I typically go for athletic men, muscular men, because they're into what I'm into. I'm an athletic female. I'm muscular. I play sports. So that's naturally what I gravitate towards. Muscular men that are like me. It's just evenly yoked. You know, that's what it is. But I've dated outside of my type. I've dated men that were overweight. I have dated men that were, I'm thinking about somebody from my early, I don't want that person's name taken in my head, from my early 20s. Anyway, I've dated every type, trust me. I've dated skinny guys. I'm just saying my type, typically, if I'm just looking at the physical, like if you catch my eye and I'm just physically just checking you out, it's typically a muscular guy. So anyways, that's what I was saying though. I was just going in on him like, you know, whatever, you know, you're doing all this horrible gang stalking stuff. And my guy, you're the only reason I even liked you was because you fit the mold. Like you had the nice body and your face was rough. You know, I was mean stuff like that, man. I was just going in because it had been weeks of him antagonizing me, insinuating that I'm trash, making the girl bend down in front of me, which is pushing that horrible narrative that gets me livid. You know, so I just finally had a reaction this day because I just felt like it just was ridiculous, the stuff he was doing. And so this day I just went in on him. And don't think that that's when they started insulting my looks, because all the way before I even started working out, they've been attacking my self-esteem with the technology. It was this thing in 2023 before I even started working out where they were with the radio and stuff. When I would get in the car and I would fix myself up, I'm one of those people that clean up nice and I look nice when I fix up. They'll make it seem like, oh, you only look good with makeup on. So they put these songs to the radio about, you know, you don't need no makeup to look good when you wake up and stupid stuff. Attacking my looks. So they've been doing that for years, even before I started working out. So don't think because I had that reaction and attacked his looks that day that's why they're attacking me aggressively. They've been doing it. They've been doing that. And actually, one of the things he did too was attack my looks before I even said anything about him. And that's another passive aggressive thing he did with that same girl that he was bringing, that young girl that was in her early 20s. I remember there was something in my song that said something about beautiful. And I remembered he had purposely walked by with her and looked at me. That was another thing he did. That was partially why I did what I did too. It was just like a lot of passive aggressive stuff he started doing around this time. I'm just like, why is he attacking me like this? Hold on, y'all. Let me blow my nose. I'll be right back. Anyways, y'all, let me wrap it up because I saw the last clip is 58 minutes. I've told this story in several different videos. It's actually so annoying for me to have to retell it again. But if I don't, they'll purposely push false narratives. They know full well they're sitting on the behind staring at me obsessed. Everything I do, it's to the point where they notice when I change weights and stuff. Like, I didn't announce that I was going to go up in weight. You know, when I had first initially done the 300-pound deadlift, they noticed that I had put extra plates on. They started revving up outside. I'm like, they are really paying attention to everything. So they saw everything that took place. They know full well what happened. And it's still like I have to retell the story or they're going to paint false narratives about it. Anyway, let me hurry up and wrap this up, y'all. So nonetheless, that day I insulted him. I went ham on him, right? I didn't see him for days after that. It was like days and days I hadn't seen him. So I think I, humiliated him on camera. But it's like, hello, that's how I feel. You see what it feels like? You like it? So I humiliated him on camera, and then I didn't see him in there for days and days and days, and then it was just all hell in there. Like, everybody was against me, because he's well-liked. Obviously, he's not targeted. He knows everyone in there. Like I told you, he has this close relationship with the gym owner. I'm the bitch that shared the offensive shit that's targeted, so it's just like it would be very easy for me to get villainized. So that's what happened. Despite them seeing what happened, that's what happened. So after that, shortly after that happened, then I heard from the correction officer job. I got an email, finally, after like waiting for a whole year to hear from them. I got an email about orientation. And so I stopped going to the gym in the morning time. I got that email. But before I stopped, I was still going. Like for a good 2 to 3 weeks, I was still going and I hadn't seen him. Like I stopped seeing him. And then it's like after maybe like a week or two, he started coming to the gym again. So anyways, then I got that email from the correction officer job, and I stopped going to the gym in the morning time. I started going in the evening time, when I got off work. And so that was when all the tactics started. That's when all the dudes started getting involved, and it was this big campaign to paint me as the thirsty hussy. And they were just doing annoying tactics, like all them coming around sipping and guzzling water, or like they're purposely lifting dumbbells and blocking the mirror, and just a bunch of stupid ass tactics that started and just started getting really out of control. That was all in reference to this guy. And then shortly after that, I want to say like maybe 2 to 3 weeks after that, he starts coming around with this girl, right? This random female just start coming around. I'm so used to him training with different females around me. I'm just like, okay. I figured he was just back onto the, gangstalking stuff, coming around me and training. So I was like, okay, well, at least he got over the thing, even though they're all doing whatever in the gym now. At least he seems to be over whatever it is, it seemed like. So he's consistently now coming around me with this girl. But I noticed it was like real close, up close and personal with this female. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't catch on. So, I noticed like one day I'm on the leg extension machine, for example, and he comes right across and he starts working out with her. Then I notice I'm in the back room, right? And I get on the adductor machine and I'm doing leg adductors. He brings her back there and he puts her on the ab machine. And that's real close to the leg adductor machine. There's like a little space in between. Then he wedges himself in between the two of us and he leans against the wall. So she's over here on the left side of him doing the ab workouts, and I'm on the right side of him doing leg adductors. So you know what the leg adductor machine looks like. If you don't know, look it up. Look at what that workout looks like. I mean, it's an awkward movement to be doing next to this guy after all these things have happened. Still wasn't catching on to who this female was. I wasn't catching it. And so he overtly now made it very clear what was going on. He started, my dad's coming in, y'all. So I'm going to stop the video and start back. And when I come back, I'm really going to finish, y'all. And I'm going to try to wrap the next clip up as quickly as possible because the video is way too long. So anyways, y'all, so he just kept working out with her in very close proximity to me, and I think I wasn't catching it. So he then one day overtly works out and blocks the mirror. I was doing squats on the Smith machine, and so he goes up to the mirror with her, and they're both using dumbbells and doing curls, and he's purposely giving her puppy dog eyes, and he starts blowing kisses to her in the mirror. So I'm like, okay, so that's why he keeps bringing this girl around. I'm like, okay, so that's what's going on. I'm just thinking, okay, it's another person he's training, and in proximity to me gangstalking. But I'm like, damn, he's really on top of me now. I'm like, it's probably because of, whatever it was that I said whenever. But I realized, like, specifically with her, he wanted me to know that this is his girlfriend. And so I caught on finally. I was like, oh, that's, Eureka, epiphany. That's what's going on. So you blow the kisses at her. I'm like, okay, I understand. I said the offensive stuff. You don't understand. I don't know why you can't empathize with me. I was just reacting to what you were doing. But I'm like, I understand. I said that offensive stuff. It was embarrassing on camera. Welcome to my world. So now here it is. You're trying to stick it to the bitch. Okay, so this is your girlfriend. Cool. Right? So I understood. I even made a video where I complimented the girl. I'm not a catty female. I complimented the girl and even him, thinking that would end or eradicate the situation. And before I did that video complimenting her, what happened was I figured out that was his girlfriend. And so he moved, and I was like, okay, now I can work on, now that I know, and now that he knows that I know, maybe now he will stop bringing her around because it's overtly clear what's going on here now. So I continue to work out. He still continues to bring her around me. There was even this night where I had this song on my playlist. I took it off my playlist now, where it was saying I've moved on, I'm happy now, or something like that. The song was saying something about being happy now, and he just walked by quick. I was like, oh, I understand. I understand that I said something offensive, and so we're rubbing the girlfriend in my face. But it's like, okay, now that you've done that, let's move past it and let's all move normal now. Let's get back to normal because you did start with me first. it just didn't go back to normal. Like, the guys kept doing gang stalking stuff. Eventually, I think I didn't react the way they wanted me to the girlfriend stimulus. So I remember one night his friends started insulting me with directed convo. Like, they were back there with his girlfriend, and, you know, I went back there to get my phone. My phone was plugged into the charger. Mind you, one of the friends that was doing it has checked me out before. I've caught him doing it. He added me on Facebook. You know, he used to just have basic conversation with me. It was never like he was coming on to me. It was just regular conversation. But I'm like, you're saying this stuff? Like, I saw you checking me out. That's why I went in on him the way that I did. But anyway, so he was back there. Two of the friends were back there with their girlfriend, and they're doing directed combo, talking about the thing didn't look good. Calling me a thing, first of all. But that's island slang. You know, in all fairness, that is island slang. It's not like just calling me a thing. That's how these dudes talk sometimes, like when they're talking about a girl or something. You know, they'll say the ting, you pressed the ting yet? And that means that you hit on that girl or whatever, right? So that's just how they talk. But, you know, doing directed combo while I'm grabbing the phone, they know I can't hear. That's why I went back there by my phone, because my earphones stopped playing. So I went back there to start the playlist back up. They have her there, the girlfriend back there, and the two of them are hanging, you know, around her, talking about, yeah, but you look good, that thing didn't look good, the thing didn't look good, you know, doing all this crazy stuff. The technology even sent something funny. The technology sent, purposely in my newsfeed, they had sent this video, and they were talking about, I don't remember which old show it was. I don't know if it was Steve Urkel or what show it was, but they were talking about when so-and-so tried to convince so-and-so that so-and-so was badder than so-and-so, and then they did this face. And so I just thought they funny that they sent that with the technology, because I'm like, they're trying to, you know, amp up the situation or put fire to this. I don't know who's running the technology. I would love to know. I think it's AI based, but I think somebody's also controlling stuff. But anyway, when they said that, I just thought that was hilarious to me. But anyway, that happened after. But that night when they were doing that in the back room, I remember that's when I finally had a reaction, because he was bringing her around me. I wasn't having any reaction. He even did the kissy thing in the mirror that night. Did not have a reaction, because I realized, okay, so that's why he's bringing her around. That's his girlfriend. He wants me to know that this is his girlfriend. I'm like, okay, I understand. You know, cool. Obviously, I hurt your feelings or whatever that one day in reaction to what you were doing to me. But okay, it's humiliating. All these cameras are on us. He's not used to getting dissed on camera. I am. I'm real hard right now. I'm real hard. I'm used to everyone watching while it's a clown show for me. But you're doing all this embarrassing stuff to me, and I didn't do anything to you. You know, it felt like a random attack. You know, even making the female bend down in front of the Smith machine. So now I finally have a reaction one day, and you get humiliated. And now, you know, whatever. But anyway, I'm an empathetic person, and I'm understanding. And I know what it feels like to be embarrassed on these cameras. So I understood the bringing the girlfriend around and all that. I didn't get really mad at it or anything. It was fine. Once he did the kiss thing and I realized who she was, I was like, okay, maybe things will go back to normal now. Hell no. No, it didn't. So anyway, his friends, I think, wanted to see a certain reaction from me that didn't happen. So that's where they're back there in the back room doing this directed convo, but the thing didn't look good and you look good and the thing didn't. And I'm just like, okay. You know, so I finally flipped out. This is when they finally got a reaction. And it wasn't her, it was them. Especially that one friend that I know has been on my stuff. I'm like, you even was writing under my videos and stuff before things got crazy in that gym. So anyways, I just said, in my head, you know, with the neuromonitoring tech, it's technological telepathy. I started going in on them, especially the one friend that, you know, I knew had whatever. I started going in on them. And this was before I was controlling my reactions. I went in on them. I didn't go in on her because she didn't do anything to me at the time. Again, I'm not a catty female. So because she hadn't done anything to me at the time, and to me, she was kind of like just an innocent, almost like casualty. I don't want to see casualty because I didn't want to make her a casualty. I didn't want to come for her and she didn't do anything to me. I'm not an ignorant female. So I'm like, I'm definitely not going to insult her. It's not her fault that these dudes are doing this. So I remember just dissing the two friends. I was going in on them. And then that was it. You know, after that, I made a video about it, explaining things because, of course, retribution as soon as I leave the gym. And I'm the vampire and the monster. And, you know, people direct the convo about vampire and she don't behave during the daytime. And, like, she come out at night, the vampire, as if I'm not being antagonized to have these reactions. So anyway, I remember making a video about the thing. And in that video, I actually complimented the girl. Even despite what they were saying and what they were trying to do, I'm not an insecure female and I'm not catty, so I actually complimented her in the video. And I didn't really actually start like snickering when I saw her coming around until she did something first. And so that was when I was like, okay, now she's doing stuff. Okay, so fair game. Because I remember after I lost the correction officer job, when that thing happened in the evening time with the girlfriend and the friends, I was still working the correction officer job, and I was working in the evening time, working out. After I lost the job, I started working out during the daytime again. And so they were still using that dude, right? The main dude. They were still using him on me. And so I remember one time he even came in like this yellow outfit. And then this is why they're using yellow on me now. And he was wearing this whole yellow suit, and he was blocking the mirror. And I said, looking like a whole banana. I said, move lickety split or whatever stupid crap I said. And now they're using yellow on me left and right. That's part of the targeting now in support of this guy, right? Whatever. Anyway, he was coming during the daytime. After I started working out during the daytime again, after I lost the job, I was seeing the Italian guy too. But every time I would see the Italian guy, I would do a U-turn and leave the gym. Things had gotten so awkward with him. It was just this thing where I started to avoid him. Like every time I go in and see him, I would leave and go to my car. And so he stopped coming. They actually stopped using him. But the other guy was just like, I didn't feel as, oddly enough, with everything that happened, I still didn't feel as uncomfortable with him as I did with the Italian guy, because it's just a whole different element with that thing where I offended a whole race of people. Like it was just a whole different thing with that thing, where it was just a whole different level of angst. Me offending you, one solitary person, versus you being a representative for a whole race that I offended. Understand the difference, right? So anyway, but he was coming in consistently. The main guy, during the daytime. He wasn't bringing his girlfriend, it was just him doing stuff. So I remember this one day, this is months later now, y'all. Months later. Because like I said, at this point now, I lost the correction officer job and I'm working out during the daytime again. Angie Stone passed away, right? Y'all know what happened. I hate to talk about it, but yeah, that's what happened. And so I downloaded a bunch of her songs on my playlist. Like just random songs I had heard growing up as a child, and songs I listened to recently that I learned about, and I just had it on my playlist. And so there's this one song that I put on the playlist. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for anybody in that gym. I was just literally downloading a bunch of Angie Stone songs. This one song came on where she was talking about, you're so possessive, you can't even hold down a job, too busy following behind me. And I think the following behind me part like hit a nerve because he's in there as a gang stalker. And so I just noticed that part of the song happens, and I was doing leg curls at the time, and I can't help it that my set ended when she said that. The set ended. I do sets of 12 now. Back then I don't remember what sets I was doing. The set ended then. So literally the set ended, and they know, why is the plane, they're crazy, they are really crazy. They actually know my workout routine. They'll actually know it so well that they know when I actually skip reps. They'll actually know when I skip a workout. Because there was this point too where, anyway, I'm not going to go to the details about that. They know my workout routine very well. And they know that I do sets. Everyone does when you work out. So my set ended just then. This is why now I'm so freaking angst and on edge. Even just yesterday, something was said in the song and I was about to start my set and then I stopped. I'm so freaking angst because of this fucking situation and what they do. So anyways, the reps just happened to end at that moment. My set ended when she said that. Oh my God, the dude thought it was for him. He started doing all kinds of stuff. He started grabbing bottles of water and walking back and forth. And then he started acting like he was stocking water in the fridge and, this and that. And then, he sat down to work out and he was looking upset. And then the owner called him over and I made a video about it, talking about the fact that the song is not for him. And I don't know why he was feeling offended by it. And so after I made that video, he stopped coming. He stopped being, totally stopped. I don't see him to this day anymore. I've seen him a few times. Like certain things have happened where I see him. But it's like I could count on my one hand the amount of times I've seen him since that thing happened with Angie Stone. What did happen though after for a couple days was in place of him, they started sending his girlfriend. So she hadn't done anything to me at the time. They're just sending her in there. I did think it was funny because I'm like, why are they doing this? But, it wasn't until she did something herself where I started actually overtly snickering whenever I would see her. Because she, something in my song, again, using the music against me. I was squatting on the split machine. And I don't remember which song it was, y'all. But something in my song said something about leave. I don't remember what song it was. I ended up taking off my playlist. But it said something about leave. And then I remembered her standing up in the mirror behind me and just kind of watching me in the mirror for a couple seconds and then walking off. And so that's when I started snickering every time I saw her because I'm like, leave. I said, I'm not coming here for him. I'm coming here. I've been coming to this gym for months, for a year and change at this point now. I'm so determined to do my workout that I even started coming in the morning time when he wasn't coming. And then he inserted himself then too, right? Whether it's gang stalking or not, I'm not coming for him. So what do you mean leave? Why would I leave my gym because of some stupid situation that y'all can't let go? No disrespect. Especially when it was a reaction to whatever he was doing first. I'm like, you just got inserted into this thing. I understand y'all are together now. That's great, right? That's nice. But I've been here. This is my gym. So I'm not going to leave my gym because you're now with this person and he feels some kind of way about whatever reaction it was that I had. You know, that's how I feel. And so that's why I started chuckling when I started seeing her. Like every time she started coming in, like I would just instantly start chuckling. Like I remember this day I was on, the chest fly machine. And she came in, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. So I remember just chuckling. And this dude that's good friends with him that was doing gang stalking one night, he even pulled up on me at the gas station like a month or two ago. It was like 2 months ago at this point. Anyway, he's another one that I kind of had a reaction to in my head, you know, thinking offensive things because he was doing stupidness that night. And I think I really offended him. You know, he was like pushing some lightweight. He was doing some overhead thing with like 10 pounds or whatever. And, you know, trying to do the aggressive, you know, passive aggressive stuff like some of these other dudes, like pinching his nose and kept staring at me and rubbing down his nose and stuff. And he was in there with his girlfriend or whatever. And so I remember thinking to myself, you know, you're here doing all this gang stalking stuff. Are you even here to work out? Because what you're pressing over your head ain't much weight. You know, I said I'm squatting all this heavy weight and you're over there trying to get my attention and you're not pressing any weight. I said, get your weight game up or whatever stupid, petty, stupid, dumb stuff like that in my head. Y'all, I didn't even insult the man's looks. I didn't go there. I didn't even go that far. So I remember like he got offended. You know, I remember I started squatting to 250 and he actually walked over from where he was and started blocking the mirror. So I said, instead of blocking the mirror, why don't you start really lifting some real weights? I remember just petty, stupid stuff, y'all. This is why they started sending me stupidness with the technology about I'm taking the manhood from the men in the town and all this dumb stuff like that. It's all been reactive abuse, reactions, and they're taking it and painting it like I'm Medusa and I'm this monster bitch that like takes the manhood out of men. And y'all, let me blow my nose. Hold on. So anyways, y'all, so I had that reaction with that dude that night, and that was months ago. That was when I was still working the correction officer job and I was working out in the evenings. And that was when they had started bringing his girlfriend around and doing the petty stuff. That dude came in and was doing that stuff, and I had that little banter, I would call it, in my head. And it's like he held on to it because he even pulled up on me at the gas station. This was after I lost the correction officer job. And just, you know, it's like these dudes will do stuff, and then when I react, they can't handle the reaction. And then it's like I'm the monster. This is what they make a noise in the background. It's just crazy to me. So anyways, so now fast forward, like I said, months later, I lost the correction officer job. I'm working out during the daytime. He's inserted, right? The same dude that I had the whole thing with that created everything in the gym that I said was my type. After the Angie Stone thing, like I said, he stopped coming. His girlfriend started coming. So she did that petty thing that day where she, you know, kind of stood up and looked in the mirror when my song said leave. And so I remembered after that, every time I saw her, I was chuckling. It was just like, to me, a joke at that point. So I remember she came in and she was at the counter and she was filling out the book or whatever she was doing. And I just did the little chuckle thing that I started to do every time I saw her. So I'm doing chest flies, right? And I'm facing the door. And then literally like a few moments later, that's why I said I feel like some of these dudes are on call. Like they're just ready to come in. I had never seen this dude at this time. This same dude I was just referencing that was there that night and he wasn't barely lifting any weight. He was more so doing gang stalking stuff. He comes in and he's hanging off of her, right? And then he purposely acts like he's cracking up and they're both acting like they're cracking up, right? And so I got awkward because I'm being watched on camera. And so it's just this kind of way where I got awkward. It was an awkward reaction. They ran with that. Despite the fact that I was laughing first. It wasn't no big crack up like what they were trying to do. It was overt what they were doing. I was like overtly trying to act like they're laughing for me to see. Where with me, I was authentically chuckling. Like I just thought the whole situation was funny. And I'm like, oh my God, now they're inserting the girlfriend. You know, she's trying to insinuate I need to leave. This is craziness. So I remember just chuckling every time I saw her. It was a chuckle to me. And so after I did that chuckle, he comes and he's acting like he's hanging off of her and they're cracking up and cracking up. And so, of course, that makes me awkward. Everybody's watching me. I'm an awkward person as it is. That did make me get uncomfortable. Oh, my God, who told me to have that awkward reaction on camera? From there, it was the joke. All of a sudden, the technology is sending stuff about the joke. And this is a new tactic they kind of low-key started trying to use. They didn't really push it too hard. But they kind of started to low-key try to use that. And it wasn't really working. It wasn't hitting, really. So they stopped using it. But that was what started that. And so after that, I stopped seeing her though. I did stop seeing her. I wasn't seeing her anymore. You know, I even made a video talking about it. I'm like, you know, what the heck? You know, I talked about the Angie Stone thing and then the fact that she started coming and I didn't understand why any of it was happening, to be honest. Anyway, they stopped using him, right? And she stopped coming. I kind of figured like, okay, maybe they're going to get over the situation now. Nope. The gang stalking just stayed happening in that gym. It's still been happening. Y'all have heard the recent videos. It's still up. It's just been up since then. It's just not as severe as it was, but it's still bad. It is still bad. They're still pushing certain stuff. You know, things are still happening. Some days are worse than others. Y'all have seen my videos. Anyway, so now let's get to the Italian guy. So shortly before I lost the correction officer job, not before, what am I saying before? Shortly after I lost the correction officer job, like I told you, a few times I saw the Italian guy in there during the daytime. And when I would see him, I would just make a U-turn and leave. And so I stopped seeing him. I just did not see the man anymore. I stopped seeing him completely. So I remembered like around this time, this was shortly after I had lost the job. I remember going on my Facebook and I'm just scrolling through and there's a section, I'm going to go to it right now, not because I don't want somebody's picture to, you know, the thing is viral, y'all. And there are people that are on island looking, well, you know, sometimes people just float there because they have mutual friends with you. You know, it's not always that somebody was on your page. Although I proved that that is the case sometimes. So I'm going to go and show you all what I'm talking about. Y'all, every time I try to do this and show you the section I'm talking about, all of a sudden it doesn't show. So let me see if it's going to show this time. But y'all know, if you have Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. That section that you could slide to the left that says recommended friends that shows up in your newsfeed sometimes. Let me. All right, y'all, I scrolled and scrolled until oh my God, it's gone again. No. Y'all, I literally scrolled and scrolled until I found it. Look, it's gone again. Let me scroll a little bit now. And if I don't find it, then look, it's here. Woo. Okay, let me just quickly scroll through. I don't want you to see people's accounts, right? But that's what I'm talking about. You see how it says people you may know up top? Okay, and you have that section where you can slide to the right. So I was just on my Facebook, laying in my bed like I always am, right? Whenever I'm home. And I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just innocently scrolling through Facebook. And that first picture at the very beginning of the slide through, I saw like somebody that looked familiar. So I'm like, is that so-and-so? You know, this is what I thought in my head, you know, because I actually recognized the face, but I didn't recognize the name. And the way he had his name was he had it abbreviated and he didn't have the beginning part of his name, but he had the latter part of his name, if that makes sense. So you know how typically when you abbreviate your name or you have a nickname, sometimes people will use the latter part of the name and not the beginning part. He had the latter part used and it was different because typically with that name, you abbreviate and you use the beginning part of the name. So I really didn't recognize, but I just knew the face looked familiar. So I just clicked on the profile. Who told me to do that? When I saw it was him, I wasn't sure still. I just clicked on the first picture and I scrolled through like 3 pictures. I was like, oh shoot, that is the Italian trainer guy from the gym. They start making a bunch of noises in the neighborhood. They're going crazy in the background. The dogs are barking. They're making all kinds of noises. They're revving up in the road. You know, they already have this narrative of me being thirsty, false narrative, and all this other crazy stuff. You know, and I already told you weird stuff has happened with him, you know, like awkward stuff. So I immediately flew off the page and I went back to that section. Now I know they're watching me like a hawk. I know they saw how I got on his page. They don't miss a thing. I know they saw how I got on his page. But I'm so angst about the whole situation and the narrative of me being thirsty and the fact that when he was coming to the gym, his name was ticking in my head so aggressively, like the name was really ticking in my head incessantly. So the whole thing was already humiliating. So I'm like, let me make sure I go back so they can see that I didn't look this guy up. I know they saw that, but let me go here now and make it clear that I saw him at the top of my people you may know, and I clicked on his profile picture. So I went back and I said, look, I didn't go on his page. I said, I know y'all just saw that. This is how it is when you're targeted. It's so weird. It's like you're having these one-sided conversations with these nosy people that stare at you all day, but they're watching you all day and they're making noise campaigns in the background. So it's, even though it's like this one-sided conversation, it isn't. It's the weirdest thing ever when you're targeted. Yeah, I need to blow my nose. I'm sorry. So anyways, I quickly went back to that section that y'all just saw. right, that said people you may know. And I went to show them that, like, it was literally the first profile in the lineup. I said the only reason I clicked on it is because I recognized his face, and I've never seen his profile floating around here before. You know, I've been working out with the dude for a whole year and change, and I've been on my Facebook, and I have never seen his profile floating in that area before. And years ago, I was told, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but then I saw something that supports what I was saying. So that doesn't mean that's the case with him, which I made it very clear that that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case with him. It could have been a coincidence. But anyways, I just noticed that, you know, all of a sudden now I'm seeing his profile, and it's the first profile there. I've never seen the dude's profile. Typically, when you have the people you may know, you typically see the same profiles over and over again, and then you might randomly just see a new one there. A year and change I've been working out with this man. Never saw him floating in my people you may know, right? So I just made the comment to the Gangstalkers, you know, again, just out of my own angst of them creating something from me being on his page. So I said more than I should have said. And I said, I heard, you know, that sometimes when you see a profile that you've never seen before at the very top of your profile of the people you may know list, it's because the person visited your page. I said, I heard that years ago. I said, I don't know if that's the case, but that's why I clicked on it. I said, I just recognized the picture, and I went over, and it really is him. Oh my God, who told me to do that? Y'all, let me blow my nose, because I hate when my nose is stuffy like this, and then I listen back to the video and I sound like nasally. Let me blow my nose, and I'll be right back. Anyways, y'all, so that's what happened. You know, I started making these comments that I didn't necessarily need to make, just out of reaction to the noise campaigns in the back. You know, constantly getting in trouble with these reactions, whatever it is, whether it's reacting to them making noises for certain things, you know, antagonization, whatever it is. So anyways, I made that comment. You know, it's not a lie. It's something I really heard. I wasn't lying about that, but I didn't need to say that, especially since I don't have any concrete evidence that that's the case in this situation. Anyway, it's not like a hardcore said, I heard that and that's what it is. He was on my page. Like, I was very clear about the fact that it could just be a coincidence, but I heard this and that, right? That, you know, when you just see a random profile that you've never seen before floating around in the mutual friends or the people you may know, it could be that that person visited your profile. I truly heard that before. And that's how it is. Facebook's interactive like that. Like, if you like a picture, you know, then it will start floating in the newsfeed again. So it's just a strange thing, you know? It's weird. But anyway, so nonetheless, I think that pissed him off, obviously. It pissed the guy off because everybody's watching. You know, it's an island full of people. It's a population of about 45,000 people. They're all watching me with bated breath. You know, like it's a movie. It's like the live telenovela on island. And so, you know, this is like scandalous. You know, this is something that pertains to him, and it's looking like I'm insinuating that he was on my page. Even though I made it clear that that might not have been the case, it's just a possibility. It's still just the fact that I insinuated it. So I've been very clear about the fact that I understood why he was angry. So I didn't really have a major reaction when what took place in the gym took place, because I understood. So anyways, I'm an understanding person. I'm not the monster they make me out to be. So anyways, I'm in the gym now. I go to the gym, and he comes in, and coincidentally enough, my luck ain't shit. I keep saying this. I just have really bad luck. I, around this time, had downloaded this song. And it was just a coincidence. You know, I was looking for new songs to the playlist. I came across Tiana Taylor, and I love her music. I used to have some of her songs on my playlist back in the day. And so I heard this song. They were trying to shadow network with the bullshit, probably. You know, and this song came across. You know, I typed in Tiana Taylor, and they just started popping songs for Tiana Taylor at me. And this song, he's so out of my league. You know, they just like to paint these false narratives about me. It's one thing or the other. You know, one minute I'm this cocky thing, and then the next thing it's like the dumpy girl that this and that. You know, it's just whatever they feel like throwing at me with the crazy technology. But anyway, I heard the song, and I liked how it sounded. I didn't even really care about the message. It was just the sound. You know, I don't really care about the message when it comes to the music, as long as it's not a bad message. And they always take these songs as literal, and it's like I'm singing the song to somebody, and the song is for somebody, and this is what I have been dealing with. You know, it's just similar to what I said happened with the Angie Stone thing, where I feel like the dude took it as me, like, taking a dab at him with the song. It's like, these songs are not for anyone. I'm just listening to music like what everyone else does. Why can't I listen to music and just work out? Why did they keep creating stuff? This is what happened when they stopped the taxis from picking me up. You know, I was listening to my playlist, and I had some Beyonce, Destiny's Child, to be specific, songs on my playlist. And the song Say My Name, or whatever the song was, one of them songs, came on and they started painting false narratives and applying it to the cyber stalk and cyberbullying situation. And then the taxis stopped picking me up. I think they just wanted to stop picking me up, to be honest with you. But anyway, the taxis all of a sudden were not stopping for me anymore. So this is what I've been dealing with, man, for like a year and change. And now it applies to this dude in the gym and these guys that are now a part of my life, even if it's like a minute part of my life, still a part of my life. And so every song I put on, it's for this person and for that person. It's just a nightmare. So anyway, I had just put that song on my playlist, though, the He's So Out of My League. You know, and the song is basically about this girl that obviously got in a relationship with this dude that she feels like, in her own mind, it sounds to me like she just has a low self-esteem, but she feels like the dude is out of her league. So she's surprised that she even got with the guy in the first place. So I'm listening to the song and I'm working out and he comes in. You know, he's trudges into the gym as I'm working out, right? And he comes in. I hadn't seen him in forever. Remember I told y'all when I first lost the job, I did see him a few times, and whenever I would see him, I would do a U-turn and leave the gym. So he stopped coming. They stopped using him, right? So this is the first time I had seen him since all of that, you know, not seeing him. So he comes in, obviously, I think because of that moment that happened in my room. Everybody saw it. So it wasn't a video that I made, but he still saw that moment, and that's, you know, obviously something that pissed him off. So I'm in there, he comes in, and he's in there training. He goes over to this girl that he's been training off and on since last year, even when, you know, before anything awkward happened with him and I, or anything awkward happened with the other dude that I said was my type, he was training this girl off and on in there. And off and on, she'll have like very brief surface level convo with me. I'm good at reading people, though. I could tell she didn't like me. I've been new. Like, even before she had this reaction this day, I'm really good at reading people. I'm intuitive. I knew she didn't care for me. But she has had surface level conversations, friendly, amicable conversations, very surface level with me before. So anyways, this day he's training her, right? And she was doing some real passive aggressive stuff. She was looking pissed with me. I don't know if they have a thing or what's going on. I don't think so. But she just seemed real pissed. You know, she was more pissed than him, it seemed, right? And the way their conversations go, I could tell that I'm pretty sure that's not his girlfriend. I think that's somebody he trains, but it still just seemed like she was like, maybe that's her friend and it's like protective, you know, and it felt like I was, again, being the cocky bitch that's acting like somebody wants me. I think this is what they feel like in their head. Like I'm this cocky bimbo that feels like everybody. That's not the case. And that's not what that moment was either. It was more so just like me freaking out because I saw the page at the very beginning of my People You May Know, and I clicked on it innocently, and they started making a bunch of noise in the neighborhood. So I'm like, oh my God, they're going to paint this like another moment where I'm being thirsty. You know, so I'm like immediately trying to explain, and I explained too much. And then I now said stuff that I didn't or shouldn't have said. Anyway, so whatever the case is, I go to the gym and they're both doing stuff. They both seem pissed, but she was more pissed than him. And they were both doing passive aggressive stuff. And so when that song, He's So Out of My League, came on, like to pacify the situation, I purposely kept like going over to the Smith machine and squatting down. Now I was doing it intentionally, squatting down every time it would say he's so out of my league, as a way of like apologizing for creating the mess in the first place, because that was something I genuinely created. So I was purposely doing that. Every time the song would say that, I would purposely go and squat down, right? Just to say like, okay, it's cool. Like, you know, I understand I fucked up. It's fine, right? And then also too, I mean, he does have his shit together, and I'm in a situation right now where I'm targeted. I have no career anymore. I barely have clothes to put on my body. So really, any guy at this moment would be out of my league. I'm trying to get it together. I'm trying to get back on my feet. Most guys would be out of my league right now, for real. So, I mean, I'm not in a predicament or a position to be checking for any. Anyways, y'all, so that's what I was doing, really, because I didn't have no beef with them, and I understand what started that. It's not like with the other guy where it just felt like this unprovoked attack, where I'm like, why are you doing what you're doing? In this moment here, I understood, okay, I said too much on the bed in that moment. That's why this is happening. Okay, I understand. We're all grown here. I get it. Right? So that was happening, and I just moved humble in the situation, and I didn't see him again after that. I think I made a brief video about it, explaining the situation, and then that was it. I didn't see him again after that. Now fast forward to about a month ago, I think this happened, or maybe 3 weeks ago. Y'all, I told you I'm having trouble keeping track of time. Like, I'm targeted. I'm dealing with stupid crap on a daily basis. I'm dealing with psychotic people that attach themselves to the targeting. I'm talking about the neighbor that keeps hammering like a nut in the back. Like, there's somebody with mental health issues that they've given access to the camera. Several people, actually, to be honest with you. I'm not going to go into details because I could, get retribution, but there's some mental health stuff going on too, and they're attaching themselves to my targeting. Anyway, so let me continue though. Because like I said, I can get retribution for just saying what's really going on. Anyway, so nonetheless, trying to remember what I was saying though, y'all. So yeah, after that, I hadn't seen him again. It was over, right? So next thing you know, now about 3 weeks ago, I'm not going to go into details about this guy. I've made videos about him too. He works out in the gym. He's another one that attached himself to my targeting. I don't know why he did it. He had nothing to do with anything. I'm not going to go into the details of him again. I actually made a whole video talking about what I'm about to talk about now, and I even took a screenshot. It's in my old phone, but the screen is messed up. I have to get it fixed. Showing, basically proof that what I was saying about the Italian guy made sense. That is the case sometimes. That sometimes when someone visits your profile, you will see their profile floating as the first profile in the people you may know, right? So I'm not going to go into the details about this guy. It's another one of these guys in the gym that started attaching himself to my targeting. I've made videos about him before, and I, like I said, made an in-depth video on my computer. I'm not about to repeat that stuff. I didn't post it. It's irrelevant. Don't worry, y'all. But he was doing gangstalking stuff, right? And on top of me doing stuff, and I didn't really understand it, and it's just constantly stuff with this guy whenever I see him. So I made a video about it, and it's almost like this bipolar thing with him, because at the beginning of last year, he was kind of cool. Him and I were friends on Facebook. He gave me a compliment when I squatted the 270 pounds on the Smith machine. Like I said, this was before things got gnarly in the gym. He was never inappropriate with me. He never tried to come on to me. I'm not saying that. It was just regular conversation. I never saw him checking me out. It wasn't anything like that. It was just regular, friendly, amicable, you're a gym bro. You saw me doing something cool. You gave me a compliment about it type stuff. He started doing weird stuff eventually, right? I made videos about it. Not going to go into the details about it. Anyway, so he's on top of me doing something. I'm like, what the heck is the issue? Like, with this guy, he keeps doing stuff, and, I've made several videos about it. So anyway, I made a video about him and talking about how I know him and his family, right? After I made that video, I kid you not, the next day on Saturday, I go on Facebook. I'm scrolling through Facebook. At the top of the list, and the people you may know, I see a picture of this older lady with his face, and she has his last name. That had to be his mom. There's no ands or fours about it. She had his exact face and his last name. So I scratched her face out, and I took a screen recording of it to show what I was talking about. What are the odds that I just made the video about this guy on Friday, and now the next day I go on Facebook, never saw this lady floating around with my mutual friends or the people you may know. Her profile is the first picture in the people you may know. So I'm sure she heard me make the video about her son or her family member. Let me not be presumptuous and say son. I think it's her son. They have the same exact face, and she has his last name. But anyway, I'm pretty sure she just saw the video and decided to visit my profile. A lot of people do stuff like that. That's not, I'm not coming for her. That's not abnormal. But I'm just saying that validates what I was saying when I said what I said about the Italian guy. Not that he was on my page, but that it was a possibility. So it's not like I was just saying shit out the side of my neck and making stuff up. I really heard that in the past before. And that doesn't mean that he was on my page. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying what I said is a possibility. That really does happen. So that's why I said what I said. But also, too, I still didn't need to say it. Even if he was on my page, I didn't need to say that. But it was really, again, like I said, just a reaction to noise campaign and my own angst of them calling me thirsty and creating these false narratives. So anyways, nonetheless, I made that video, trying to show that, this is why I said what I said. I still didn't need to say it, but this is why I said what I said. Here's the evidence that this does happen sometimes. Look, I just made the video about this lady's son or her family member, whatever. And now the next day I'm on Facebook and her profile is the first thing floating in my people you may know, and I've never seen her there before. So I'm like, that's why I said what I said. Anyway, after that, I didn't see him, the Italian guy or anything. For a while, I hadn't seen him. It's not like me creating that made him just pop up in the gym or something. But I did notice, like, about maybe a week ago. So this was way after, not way after, but I told you that thing happened about a month ago. About a week ago, I I'm losing track of time. I hope my timing enough. Actually, I think that thing happened about a month and a half ago. And I saw the Italian guy not a week ago. It was like 2 weeks ago. And that was when they, randomly I noticed, and this is how I keep track of when certain things happen. I noticed I got a schedule, and on the schedule, they put BOC on my schedule. And that's the name of the area or the location where I was a correctional officer. So I told y'all in prior videos that I do security at night, and I used to be posted over there, right? Coincidentally enough, I had 2 jobs over there. I was a correction officer during the day, and then I would do security over there on the weekend. With my security job, they post me in different locations. That used to be a permanent part of my schedule, was working over there on the weekend. So there was this one morning, this never happened before. Like, I do nod off on the job. It happens off and on, I'm not going to lie. There are other workers that happens to too. But there was this one night where I nodded off on that post. And typically when I do nod off on that post, I still am able to get up in time when people start coming through. Like, the cook has always come through and I'm up and ready to open the door for her. She's never had to sit at the gate and wait for me. But this one morning I was real tired, boy. And I didn't hear her. I didn't even come. Like, my body naturally just wakes me up anyway. When the nod off happens, like, my body the internal clock just wakes me up. And I'm always up before anybody's coming through that gate. I was knocked out. I did not hear this lady. I don't even know if she was really beeping hard, because I know there was one morning where she came and I was up and she didn't barely beep, and I just stood up and I opened the thing for her. I was like, she thought I would hear that, but I just opened it. I was up anyway and I opened it for her. So anyways, this morning now, she just went out like irate. First of all, they called me. The inside called me and they said, hey, you didn't hear the cook that's what really got me or stirred me. They said, you didn't hear the cook by the gate? I said, no. I said, I didn't hear a beep at all, because typically a beep would wake me up. I'm a very light sleeper. I was like, no, I didn't hear anything. They said, no, she's been at the gate beeping I'm like, there's no way she was there beeping and I didn't wake up. Like, they're making it like she was there beeping and beeping. I don't think that's what happened. I think I nodded off and she came and saw me and the call was made. But whatever the case is, they said she was there beeping and beeping and beeping. So I'm wrong anyway, regardless. I was nodded off and I didn't wake up in time to let her through. So it is what it is. So I opened the gate for her and she comes in, she's cussing and this and that. And that cook doesn't like me. She used to be wearing army pants and stuff. And one time we were in the kitchen. Anyway, I'm getting into dangerous territory. I'm not supposed to talk about the job. Yeah, you see the chicken warning me? Let me stop. But yeah. So anyway, I lost that post. And it wasn't anything I was going to argue about either, because whatever it was, I did nod off. So it is what it is. That's one thing. I'm not going to argue when I'm wrong in a situation. I was wrong, regardless of what it was. I was dead wrong. So anyways, they gave me the post again. So I was getting excited. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is like them introducing me into getting that post back on my schedule for the weekend, because my paycheck is suffering. Like, those were the 2 of the main 8-hour shifts that I had on my schedule. Now I only have one 8-hour shift, and that's on Sundays at the school. Right? So I was like, okay, maybe this is them giving me back the post, right? So I made sure I don't drink coffee. I am like anti-coffee. It's acidic. It burns out the adrenal glands. It's just not good for you. You can drink organic coffee. There are some health benefits to coffee, some detoxifying effects to coffee. Like, you can use it to do coffee enemas if you use organic coffee and pull toxins out. But to be drinking it on a regular basis, especially just the regular everyday coffee that most people drink, it's not good for you. It's acidic and it burns out your adrenal glands. Anyway, I'm anti-coffee. It always messes with my anxiety. So I don't drink it like that. I so badly wanted to make sure that there wasn't even a second where I nodded off. I filled up this big mug of coffee, right? Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, y'all. Whoa, this is not what this is about. I'm just telling you the day when I saw him, because I remember that was the day when they put the BOC on my schedule and I was so excited and they're making noises in the neighborhood and stuff. So anyway, I remember that day I went out to do some shopping and I was in one of the grocery stores I like to shop at. And when I'm leaving, they didn't have what I wanted. I went in there to grab one thing. And when I was leaving, I saw the Italian guy by the registers just kind of walking in my line of path. Like, I would have had to walk by him. So I didn't want to have to walk by him again after the awkwardness that happened the last time I saw him in the gym, where he was upset and whatever was going on. So I did this thing where I went around I went around this path that you normally wouldn't pass through to get out of the store. But I just completely did a duck and swoop and I avoided interaction and I beeline out of there. And that was the last time I saw him other than today. And that was about maybe 2 weeks ago. So now yesterday, I'm sorry, y'all. Yesterday I was trying to get creatine. I was on this hunt for creatine. I typically get it from my gym. The guy charges $50 for it. That's because it's a decent size and it has flavor and all this stuff like that. I am struggling. I'm broke. Right now I'm struggling. Like, I didn't even get all my paycheck. Like, I had worked some extra shifts. I've been calling like crazy trying to get extra shifts just so I could get more money on my check. And the extra shifts I worked were not even added to the check. So I was just really like stressing it yesterday because I got this little small paycheck and I had to split it amongst my bills and stuff. So anyway, I was driving up and down trying to figure out how to split this paycheck up and how I was going to get the creatine that I want, because that's a part of my bills, even though that's not a necessity. This is what I do. This is what I have at the moment. I do like to take creatine. It helps with my working out. People make it like, and when I say people, I'm talking about the Gangstalkers. They keep trying to make it like I'm taking steroids and like the creatine is helping me lift a heavy weight, and that's not the case. What the creatine does, and I've explained this in prior videos, is it puts water into the muscles. And your muscles are made up of water mostly. Your muscles, I believe, are 80 to 90% water. And so that's how the creatine helps you, because it puts water into the muscles. So it helps with recovery. You recover quicker. So that makes you stronger. But it's not like steroids where it's actually giving you testosterone and making you stronger. It's a whole different ballgame. So don't feel confused and think that you can be a novice and pop some creatine and then go deadlift 300 pounds. No, it takes hard work, consistency, etc. So anyway, they still keep making noises every time I take the creatine and, just antagonizing me, y'all, what they do with the technology and with the targeting and the program, man. Anyway, so I'm there looking for the creatine, though, because that's one of the main things and one of the main staples that I do take, one of the main supplements I take. I'm not getting enough protein in. I told y'all I'm struggling, so I'm hardly able to eat enough protein. I've lost a lot of mass. I was a lot bigger. When I lost the job, I was 192 when I lost the job. And right now I weigh 179 pounds. So I lost weight. I can see it too. Anyway, lost about, like 12 pounds, something like that. Anyway, so I was on a goose hunt trying to get this damn creatine. And my gym sells it, but it's too expensive. There was one time where I noticed he gave me a deal and he sold it to me for $30. And I believe it's because I was having this convo with my sister about the fact that the health food store sells it for $30, but I was saying that I like the gym's own more because his has flavor, and it's like, to me, I like that more, the flavor and stuff. I think he heard that conversation, and so he decided to, do me a favor and give me it for $30, but that's not what he sells it for, and I didn't want to keep making him sell it to me for $30. So I went to the health food store. That only happened one time. I don't know why I'm seeing the birds flying by. That was one time. Anyway, so the last time I bought it from the health food store because I was struggling and I couldn't afford the $50, and I didn't want to make it like he had to keep giving me this deal, this $30 deal, when that's not what he sells it for. So anyway, I went to the health food store. I bought it last time. Yesterday now, I went to buy it at the health food store. I noticed they're telling me to out of creatine. So then I go to the gym and I'm asking him, well, do you have a smaller one that you sell? He said, no, actually, I only have the $50 one. And he said, I actually ran out of it. And he said, I have, some here to the side, like some without flavor I could give you some of. So it's basically his own personal creatine. I feel like, like I'm jonesing for creatine. So I'm like, I'm not going to make him give me some of his own personal creatine. So I just said, don't worry about it. I'm like, I can look around and figure it out. So I said, do you know where I could get it from? He told me the pharmacy. There was a time months ago when I first started buying the creatine, not months ago, it was like last year, when I was looking for the creatine and I tried to get it from the pharmacy and they didn't have any. So in my head, I already knew to myself, well, if he sells it and he's a gym, most of these gyms are probably smart. I'm sure they thought, well, let me sell fitness stuff since I have folks coming in that's working out. Y'all, the rooster's going off. Let me sell it. So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, let me hit up these gyms around here and see which one of them will sell me some creatine. Y'all, let me go chase that rooster because it's a drone. I'll be right back. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Oh, y'all, I'm doing craziness. I went over to the video by accident. I'm meaning to come over here to Facebook. Anyway, so let me hurry up and finish the video, y'all. It's way longer than I want it to be. It's 2.5 hours, man. Ridiculous. Anyway, I don't know why now I'm starting the video. I'm hearing noise outside the door again. It's just like, my God. Anyway, y'all, so nonetheless, so that's what I was doing basically, on a hunt for creatine, trying to figure out if I could find it for an affordable price. But I already had in my mind that, in my head, I was thinking it's not going to be any more than 50. I was like, if they sell it for 50, I'm going to just duke it out and pay the 50 and just try to stretch money and make it work. Cause that's like a major thing that I take. I can't afford to not be taking creatine and not getting enough protein in. My muscles just aren't going to recover the way they're supposed to. So I was like, I have to figure out a way to at least get the creatine. So anyways, I decided that I was going to start at this gym across from one of the schools that I do security at. And back in the day, to my knowledge, the person that owned it was this Arab guy. That was what I knew, who I knew to own it. Because I used to have a membership at the gym next door. This was years ago, y'all. I'm talking like 2017, 2016, when I wasn't even an actual teacher at that time. I was a substitute teacher or a para-educator, para-professional. And I was working at like the elementary schools around the area and stuff. So I went there and I had a membership, not at the gym that I went into, but the gym next door. There's a gym right next door. And so I knew from going in there years ago, and realizing they were too expensive at the time. I don't know what it is now, but I mean, back then it was too expensive for me back then because I was only a paraeducator. I wasn't a teacher yet. And I was trying to save up my money and stuff. So I remember back then I had went in there and I, talked to the owner who I thought was the owner, and it was an Arab guy. So I had no idea that this guy, the Italian guy, owned the gym now, or maybe he's a part owner. I don't really know the specifics, to be honest with you. But I never in my wildest dreams imagined I would walk in there and he'd be in there, or I would not have gone in there. I just told you when I saw him like 2 weeks ago, I did a duck and swoop to avoid interaction because it's just too much has happened, embarrassing stuff and awkward stuff, and I don't like awkward. And the cameras are on me. I just was trying to avoid the guy at all costs. No disrespect. It's not like I have a problem with him. Like I explained to you all already, it's just a lot of embarrassing, awkward things have happened. Now they're making noise with the bird. I'm not meaning that in a disrespectful way. They take everything I say and create stuff. I just told you all, this has been a whole 2.5 hours of me talking about what's taking place in the gym. And you've heard the things that's happened with this guy. So it's just like, I've just tried to avoid because it's awkward. He's not a bad person. He's nice and everything. It's awkward. So anyway, I go in there and there's young guys at the counter, look at you. He was in his 20s running the front desk. Obviously I knew he wasn't the owner. But he could help me out. He could tell me if they sell creatine or not. So he had this big, bright smile. He said, hey, what's going on? I said, nothing. He said, are you a member? And I said, no, I'm not a member. I said, I'm just here trying to find out if you guys sell creatine. He said, yeah, sure we do. He said, check the door right there. He said, you can see the prices. So I looked up and I saw they had this really large bottle of it. So I knew it was going to be expensive because it's a larger amount. And so I saw $60. So I thought, well, for that size, that's not bad. It looked like it was maybe a little bit larger than the one from my gym, and it's $60. I'm not sure if it was flavored or not, but I'm like, I don't have money like that, but I'm willing to, stretch it out to make it because I don't have it, there's nowhere else that I can get it from. The way my gym owner was saying it sounded like he was waiting for a shipment. So I didn't know when that was coming. The pharmacy said they had to order more, so they hadn't even ordered it yet. So I'm like, what is this going to be, like 2-3 weeks of me waiting for creatine? So it's like, okay, I'm, going to duke it out and just pay for it. So I said, okay, sure, let me get it. Right? So right as I said that, the Italian guy walks in, he goes, oh, hey. I know he saw me on the camera. Come on. Everybody's watching me on camera. But he said, oh, hey. He said, how you doing? Whatever. But he wasn't mean or nasty to me or anything. It wasn't like that time when I saw him in the gym where he was clearly upset. He did do something passive aggressive, but he wasn't seeming angry this time. So he just said, hey, what's going on? I said, nothing. How you doing? So he came around and he shook my hand, and I shook his hand. And he said, welcome. He started just saying welcome. I said, thanks. Man. So he walked around, and as he's walking around, the guy said, hey, she's trying to buy creatine. And so then he took a big gulp of the thing in his hand. He had like some sort of cup in his hand. And he took a big gulp of it, and he said, oh, we're all out. He said, the shipment's coming in on Monday. So he said, if you come back on Monday, you can get some. And I said, okay, sure. I said, no problem. Thank you. And I left on it there. But the point is, I feel like it was kind of like a tactic that I don't even know if, I don't want to be accusatory, but I don't even know if my gym was out of creatine. I don't even know if the health food store was out of creatine. I mean, I believe the health food store really was, because I do remember the last time I bought, they only had one more left. I took literally the second one that was left on the shelf. So I think they genuinely were out of creatine. I don't know if my gym owner was out of creatine. And I already told you this guy was all up in that gym. So he knows the owner very well. And they're obviously both gym owners or whatever's going on. So I think he knows him very well. And I don't know if they were like in communication. They didn't know I was going to do that. They had no idea that I was going to pop up at the gym and get creatine. You could tell it was unplanned too, the way he came out, because the young guy that was at the counter looked surprised when he came out. You could tell it wasn't orchestrated. It was just like spur of the moment. They didn't know I was going to do that. They didn't know I was going to come into the gym But still, I'm sure he saw on camera that I was on a hunt for creatine. So I think the drink and saying come and get it on Monday was like, I will sell you the creatine, but, you know, this was kind of like, it just was like this, I think a gang stalking tactic. I really do. So he would sell it to me, but I would have to wait until Monday. And it was just kind of like doing the gulp thing. And I think it was more so like a tactic for making these videos or whatever the case is. Even with the owner, I think that might have been the case too, but I'm not sure. I don't want to bear false witness. I've gotten in so much trouble. I'm not accusing him. I'm not accusing them. It could have really been that they were all out of creatine and he just took the gulp of the drink to do the gang stalking thing there. But maybe he really was out of creatine. I don't know. But he told me, come back on Monday, he's going to order a shipment. He said he's about to order a shipment. And so to come back on Monday and he'll have creatine to sell to me on Monday. That's what he said. So I would have got the creatine. But it was just like this thing where he did the gulp thing. So I just felt like maybe that was his way of, you know, saying because of making the videos. I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions. Anyway, it wasn't that big of a deal. He wasn't nasty to me. He came, he shook my hand. He was very friendly aside from taking the gulp and telling me to come on Monday. Really what he did was just come out and kind of make it be known that it was his gym. So if anything, that's the humiliating part because I'm coming in rags, you know, torn up clothes, like literally. I just put my clothes in the laundry. So I already told you I don't have much clothes. And so the pants I was wearing yesterday was busted. The zipper was broken. I had to keep pulling the shirt down just to hide the big open gaping hole in my pants. And I'm dragging into this man's gym apparently, you know, and all this humiliating stuff has already happened with that situation, you know, stuff that I would have rather not have ever dealt with. So that in and of itself is humiliating to me, if anything, but still it wasn't that big of a deal. He wasn't nasty to me. He shook my hand. It wasn't that serious. It really wasn't until I left that I really felt embarrassment because it was what they started doing when I left the gym. You know, it was first of all, you know, I head down to, you know, I go to the basketball court. I'm still not bothered by the situation because I'm like, okay, you know, it's not that big of a deal what's happened. Let's let the plane fly by, y'all. Let's let the plane fly by. Anyway, I'm not that bothered by whatever because I understood even when I saw him in the gym and he was angry and stuff, I understood. I was wrong in that situation, period. So I understood. So it's not one of those moments where I'm acting pompous because when they do stuff and I feel like it's unprovoked and like they're just attacking me for no reason, that's when I act cocky and pompous. I'm not a wrong and strong type of person. I'm a right and strong type of person. If I feel like I'm right in a situation, then I'm going to start acting cocky and pompous. If I feel like I'm a wrong in a situation, then I'll humble myself and it'll be like my tail between my legs type of thing. So with him, I wasn't feeling any kind of way with him. I really wasn't. I just left and I went to go play basketball. And like typical, I'm shooting and not really trying to make the shot. Like I'm just doing these. It's not like I'm purposefully missing because I think that's what they think I'd be doing. That's not the case. I'd really just be shooting and not trying hard. You know, on some days it's just like I'm just doing it because it's my routine and I enjoy basketball. But I'm not like trying to sink the shots. It's not like I'm there to play a game. It's not like I'm trying to shoot and jam the ball in the hoop and make all 10 shots and have to leave right away because that's part of my routine, y'all. After I work out, I go to the basketball court and I have to make a minimum of 10 shots. Like it has to go in the hoop before I leave the basketball court. So sometimes I'll just purposely shoot in this kind of like lackadaisical kind of way just so I can stay on the court and dribble a little bit more and, you know, that kind of way like that. I'm just having fun, you know, just chilling. It's not like a real basketball game. So anyway, I'm shooting and I'm not really trying to make it. You know, they were already revving up and doing stupidness because of what happened, you know, at the gym with the Italian guy. And I didn't think it was that serious for them to act like that. Oh, I missed a major part of the story, y'all. So after I left his gym, then I went to the other gym, another gym that I know about. This is a major part of the story, y'all. And when I went up there, at the counter was the brother of the guy that I made the video about, where I showed that his mom was, or relative, whoever it is, was at the very top of the people you may know on my Facebook the day after I had made the video about him. His brother was at the counter in the other gym that I went to. And then the guy that was actually running the counter was a white guy. But he was nice and friendly to me. You know, he was just showing me the creatine that he had, and he had it for a reasonable price. But both creatines that he had, he said was $36. And I know y'all don't understand that because I haven't made videos about it. But recently, they've been sensitizing me to the number 36. I'm not going to go into the details about it. So there was gang stalking even in that gym. You know, so they all talk to each other. All of these guys know each other, and they all talk to each other. It's a small island. They're watching me on camera. It is what it is, man. But anyway, so I was able to get the creatine though, and I left. But after that, they're revving in the road and just going crazy and acting crazy about what I felt was minute gang stalking activity. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It was to the point where I wasn't even triggered. You know, typically when I'm triggered, like I said, I'm acting cocky and, you know, I would have been purposely trying to sink my shots, and it wasn't that big of a deal to me. So I went on the court and I was just shooting and I wasn't really trying. And I noticed the revving in the background and doing craziness and the plane is flying overhead. I'm like, are you kidding me? So then this is why I purposely started sinking my shots, and I made 5 back-to-back shots. And I was just purposely sinking it because I'm like, what is going on? I was just cracking up. But I still didn't start acting awkward until I got, like, I would say down to the west end of the island. Because I was taking a drive. You know, I like to drive through the rainforest sometimes and get air and stuff. And while I'm heading to the west end of the island, I noticed that these people are psycho, you know, in this neighborhood. I keep saying that. Like this person with not these people. Let me be careful because I make these kind of like generalized comments. And I'm really talking about like a certain select few of people. And then it's like everyone's getting pissed because I generalized and I said these people in the neighborhood. The people that get involved, like the person with the hammer. Crazy nut. Anyway, so I'm headed down right to the west end of the island to take a little drive through the rainforest. And they start manipulating, like I told you all a little while ago, my Spotify playlist. And so I notice on the playlist they send me this song, this offensive song, basically attacking my looks, right? I'm not going to go into the details about what the song said or what the title of the song said, but it was humiliating. And I'm like, why are they doing this? You know, it was just weird and crazy to me. And so, that made me start getting awkward. And so I'm sitting on the camera now looking awkward. And I'm taking this drive and I'm looking awkward. I couldn't catch myself after they sent that stupidness. That was when they really started going ham in the roads because they saw me start to actually look awkward and bothered. They started revving and going crazy. A bunch of ref campaign in the like. They just have this sick, some of them, not everyone, like a good chunk, this sick obsession with seeing me humbled and humiliated. And so anytime there's a moment where it seems like that's happening, you really start to see activity. So they started going ham. I was just like, okay. So I was like, I really have to make a video about this. I was like, for sure, I definitely need to make a video about this. Because that was not my intention. I was not planning to make a video about it. You know, to me, it wasn't that serious what took place. Again, with that specific guy, I understand, right? I can empathize. I know I was wrong in the situation. But it was the things that they started doing, man, with the ref campaign and all that other stuff. That was where I was just like, nah, I'm going to definitely make a video about this and talk about this. Because this is ridiculous. Anyway, y'all, super long video just to talk about basically nothing, stupidness. Anyway, so that's it, y'all. I'll talk to y'all in the next one, man. I had to just document the craziness. I don't really understand what that was about, the big uproar on island. But it wasn't really that big of a deal what happened. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Peace out.